2021 Donington Historic Festival, and we've in many ways saved the best till last. We've got a huge 50-car grid of cars for our Royal Automobile Club Pall Mall Trophy race. It's over 3 hours, and we've got some very, very well-known faces and names in this grid of cars. We've certainly got some motorsport royalty in this one. We've got a huge grid of cars, so we'll get down the order as quickly as we can. In first place is the number 17 Shelby Daytona Cobra of Alders and Jordan. They're on the pole position from number 24 Wills and Harvey in the Lotus 15. Minshaw and Keane, that's Phil Keane from GT Fim, is they're not there, so they've been pulled. So we're going to be continuing down the order. Marcus, Oinhausen, Seerstorff and Newell are third. Girardo and Cottingham will start in fourth spot. In fifth spot will be Charles Jr. and Childs, so that's a father and son team from that. Littlejohn and Evans will start in sixth. Seventh is Evans, Smith and Little, and then we've got Haddon and Sean Lynn starting in eighth spot. Ninth sees Goldsmith, Short and Wiles. Mike Wiles, one of the motorsport royalty that we will I was going to mention. Willis and Jobstle are in 10th. 11th is Kenton Ward. Stanley and Cook start 12th. 13th on the grid then is the Wakeman and BE Blakely Edwards car. Peterkin in that car as well. Cottingham, Bryant and Stanley are in 14th. I think we've run out of time because the lights are out on the pace car as they are already on the back straight and to the chicane. So this race will very much get underway. 3 hours with 2 mandatory pit stops. We'll bring you that information in a moment when we start getting towards the pit window, which I've got to say is already open. You can take one of your mandatory pit stops right now if you so choose. And with 50 cars on this grid, all now barrelling towards Redgate, that might have been discretion being a better part of valour as an option. Into first place has gone that beautifully liveried turquoise E-Type with the blue stripes, just gone out of view now. As the rest of this, I've got to say, Alistair, 50 cars over 3 hours, and the cars of what we're about to describe. Again, choose your favourite. Impossible.
Yeah, very much so, yes. And Roy Alderslade finding the Cobra Coupe, the Daytona Cobra Coupe, a handful as he came down through the Craner curves there. Dropped from the pole position to third place, but pole position set by his co-driver, Andrew Jordan. And as the rest of the field stream through, this is a tremendous sight. We know the leaders will already be going through McLean's, but the last car is still coming down through the Craner curves. What a field.
And we've got everything from Lotus Elan, Austin Healey's, all the way through to Shelby Daytona Cobras, Lotus 15s, Jaguar E-Types. Quite an eclectic mix of sports racing cars and saloons for the Royal Automobile Club Pall Mall Cup. And as I've said, 3 hours duration. Leaders already into the chicane and out of it. Everyone, I've got to say, making their way around this first lap in very orderly fashion. Across the line then is Oinhausen, Seerstorff. I think it's Newell at the wheel starting that number 7. We'll just confirm that as the rest of the field come through. And a spinner. That looks like a spinner at Coppice there, number 2. Jaguar number 2 there right at the back of the field. Richard Mines, that's Richard Mines and Chris Lillingston-Price, looking like they're recovering from a potential spin between McLean's and Coppice. The leader already into the old hairpin for the second time in that bright turquoise coloured Jaguar E-Type. Who are we thinking's at the wheel then?
Well, I was just going to apologise for not giving you an immediate answer because my information is quite complicated with 3 drivers in some of the cars. So is it who's 1, who's 2, who's 3? But we have up until now always had the timekeepers putting our first driver first in the driver mixed pairing. So Oinhausen Seerstorff would perhaps be the driver of that car because he's appearing on our screen as first ahead of Andy Newell. So we'll try and pick up the helmet colour if we can, and there's that car coming through, the leader coming through
Leader coming through the chicane, already led by the rest of the field. And fastest lap changing very, very rapidly. It's the Lotus 15 of Wills and Hardy that take the fastest lap of the race. They're in second spot. There's the number 214, that beautiful Aston Martin project car, the DP 214 of Short, Wiles and Goldsmith.
And just to confirm, according to the information we've been given, trying to work out the colour scheme, Duncan's helped me with that, so it is Oyenhausen-Seerstoff in the car we're looking at now, according to the information we've had, rather than Andy Newell. But Andy Newell also runs a black helmet, black overall, so it's very difficult to tell them apart, because the driver...
when the car's got a roof on it.
Yeah, absolutely, but looking at it there, that's white overalls, isn't it? Black helmet. So that maybe is the owner, Marcus Oyenhausen-Seerstoff, but it's being chased by, we know that's Roger Wills, don't we?
Yes,
because it's not Tim Harvey.
That hasn't got a roof.
That hasn't got a roof.
So it's easy to
tell,
see.
and it's black versus yellow and blue helmet. So we know that's the owner of the car, New Zealander Roger Wills. Very quick in the little Lotus, the Lotus 15, chasing down the Jaguar. And that second place car will be handed over to 1992 British Touring Car Champion Tim Harvey later in the race, and perhaps back to Roger Wills for the finish, or maybe it will stay with Tim Harvey for the rest of the race.
We shall see. It might be appropriate to just mention what the pit stop situation is. But I'm going to stop there because we've got a challenge for the lead. Roger Wills comes down the inside. It was completely on acceleration out of Redgate. He lined that car up, and it's the little open top sports race, the Lotus 15, another one of Colin Chapman's creations that goes into the lead of this race, and Marcus Oyenhausen-Seerstoff has to slot in behind. I'm not sure he's got the pace. It kind of took about 2 or 3 laps for that little open top Lotus for its tyres to maybe come on, and we saw it close the gap, and I think we're going to see that car now pull away.
Very much. It went through on the inside at the Craner curve, so we'll see now whether he can pull away. So that's the classic battle we've been talking about throughout the weekend, the power in the one car versus the light and the handling of the other car. That's the Lotus, very much lighter. There's a Lotus Elan, car number 26, which is in fact the 26R. That's the racing version of the Lotus Elan, produced by Lotus. The type number of the Lotus Elan was 26, hence the 26R number. And the 72 car there in picture, Nick Sleep, Alex Montgomery and Joel Wickham in the Shelby Mustang, the very same Carroll Shelby that was involved in developing the Cobras and the Daytona Cobras that we see at the head of the field. And a battle here, 2 great British marks, Austin Healey versus Jaguar, as they come down to the chicane with a TVR behind them. TVR, another not quite so well known make as the Austin Healey and the Jaguar perhaps, but 3 great British marks there.
So with that change of the lead, I can tell you it's Chris Childs, certainly a Chris Childs in the number 74 in third spot. 2.5 seconds is the gap before we see the 4th place car come through, and that's the number 75 of Simon Evans and James Littlejohn. It's the Lotus Elan, first of the Lotus Elans in the field.
It's junior.
It's
Charles,
junior, is it?
And in 75, again, I think this will prove that the timekeepers have done what. Yes, Littlejohn is starting in that car. So, thanks to the timekeepers, we're getting the information on our screens. In this quite complicated set of information with 3 drivers in many of the cars. 2 E-types of different styles, the more traditional fixed head coupe behind, and here is Porsche versus Lotus versus Morgan just behind, another great British one. That's one of the early 2-litre Porsches that's been prepared for a series for racing just for those. It's been amazingly successful up until 2020 happened, because it is a pan-European series. And here we have the earlier Austin Healey, the 100, versus the Morgan, versus now we've got an MG in our mix, and a Triumph.
And there's a Triumph TR4.
It's amazing, every make is out there. And the other Porsche, the number 9 car, that's Matthew Home and Steve Winter in the early 911 Porsche, one of the most well-known shapes.
And there's another make and model, this time in the shape of the Lister Nobly. We saw a great race for a pack of Lister Noblies yesterday. And that car, called a Knobbly, there's a bit of a story to that, Alistair. It's not just about, it's down to the body shape, and you can see the refined sort of aero, sort of smooth lines, curved lines. And the other car in shot there, the number 35 of Rainer Becker and Andy Prill, Porsche 904 in red with the Scuderia Filippinetti team logo on that car, just down the inside of the Lister Knobbly at the old hairpin and moving up the order.
That's a very classic shape, quite reminiscent of the Ferrari 250 LM with that rear window with the buttresses going down there, and an early example of a successful racing Porsche. As we look at the Lister Knobbly, so called, as Joe's just said, because the wheel cover, the wheel arches go over the wheels, and a lady who was related to one of the team members involved in that car said, "Oh, that looks knobbly, doesn't it?" Which it stuck. It's always been called the Lister Knobbly.
It's common. It's a common name now, isn't it? You see those cars and you immediately think of the name, which is obviously started out as a nickname for the car.
And the TR just getting by the Porsche, the Morgan following through there, and the Elan as well. We've got now Porsche versus Lotus, the 911 shape leading the Lotus Elan, one of genius Colin Chapman's road cars that also very, very successful in racing, very lightweight, as all Chapman's Lotuses were, but also a great chassis, really handled very well indeed. The Porsche rear-engined, so the engine hanging out beyond the back wheels, quite an ungainly shape, and it's an art to drive them quickly. But this one is being driven quickly and staying ahead of the front-engined Lotus Elan, just behind the number 84 car, which is Steve Jones and Robert Barry in another of the race versions, the 26R. And there's the Jaguar C-Type. That's Rudy Friedrichs again, and Gary Pearson again. We've seen Gary out racing 2 or 3 times yesterday in the Jaguar C-Type from 1953 with the 3.4 litre Jaguar engine. That we've got a car stopped. That's a Cobra stopped at the side of the road on the long straight down into the chicane. So yellow flags are locally there as the Porsche versus Elan battle goes on. It's
a different Porsche and Elan battle though, isn't it? We've got several Porsche and Elan battles. Now then, that's not right, is it? Car 22, it's a Jaguar E-Type.
Michael O'Shea and David Hall.
There's smoke billowing from it, but that's purely to do with the bodywork. The front wing is part of the bonnet of the car, and it's all one section that lifts up, and it's lifting up as if to help me describe it. Now he's managed to, that driver will not be able to see anything. He's just got a big black screen in front of him as the bonnet of the E-Type has flopped forwards. The number 22, Michael O'Shea, David Hall.
Yeah, and it's Michael O'Shea at the wheel.
Michael O'Shea, thank you, Alistair, for that. Now he's pulled the car off, just 2 drivers left on the entrance to Coppice. He's kind of out of harm's way and certainly off the trajectory that I would call the racing line. I'm not sure whether that was... I think that's been caused by damage. Somebody's hit him in the side and that sprang the clip, the bonnet clip.
It looked like the front left corner was pushed in and that had pushed the bonnet up. So whether he'd contacted with the barriers or whether he'd contacted the back of another car, we don't know. As we go back to the leading battle, this car in Project 214 car, the blue car, is in 6th place, chasing the 5th place number 17 Daytona Cobra Coupe, which took pole position, but with due deference to its owner-driver Roy Alderslade, it was put on pole by ex-British touring car champion and builder of the car, along with his father Mike, Andrew Jordan. So that car will be handed over to Andy Jordan in the latter stages of this race. And the Project 214 car, that's not an original car. It's running number 214, which denotes its project type, development project DP 214, Aston Martin. And this was an effort, exactly as the Cobra was, to make the car more aerodynamic for the fast straights of Le Mans and in the American races as well, Daytona and Sebring. And Cobra's answer, or Shelby's answer, was to build the Daytona Cobra Coupe. Aston Martin were building these project cars, and the DP214, which we saw, actually got the fastest speed on the Le Mans Mulsanne Straight that year, 199, I think, miles an hour.
Wow, still touching 200 miles an hour back then.
Yeah, didn't finish the race, but and now we're looking at another icon of this era of racing, the number 4 of John Miles, Dave Coyne and Mark Wright. We've seen Mark and Dave racing already, and John Miles as well, in that Cortina. That's the Ford Mustang as he comes down the hill, and that car was started by John Miles. Now John didn't drive the Alan Mann Cortina in the earlier touring car race. It was solo driven, but he should have taken the wheel for the start of this race, according to our information.
We've got a pedant in our midst.
Well, I said 198, didn't I?
Right, you said 199. Yeah, all right, and that's acceptable.
Yeah.
I'm fine with that.
Yeah.
But the pedant behind us, who was going to be joining us, he's going to be giving you a break into the second hour, and then you're going to come back, and you're going to have to put up with him. Peter Snowden has given us the information. It was actually 198.234. 199 to any normal person, though, Alistair. So I think we'll settle with that. He's not normal, though.
We're watching Roger Wills, who is leading the race in a strong position. He's 1 second ahead of, now we didn't see it in the background there, the very obvious turquoise E-Type should be in the pit. There it is, just coming around the outside. That's in second place, the E-Type, and it was just a second across the line last time around, as you can see on your timing panel there, 0.973.
Alistair, we were going to mention, or I was going to mention, the pit stop protocol for this race just before we had a change of lead, something exciting happening on track. So the regulations are for the Royal Automobile Club Pall Mall Cup is that you have to serve 2 mandatory stops. We've talked about pit window opening. There's kind of like the pit window is immediately open from race start. However, that pit window closes with 20 minutes of the race remaining. Am I correct in that?
I wasn't told about the closing.
All right, okay.
Yeah.
But we have got a different set of regs with regards to the actual pit stop.
Yeah, there are 2 pit stops. Oh, and the Project 214.
The project car.
Oh dear, that's such a shame.
Luckily we were talking about that.
Yeah, well, at least we got to talk about it before it retired. That's a real shame. That's a car which we'd have liked to have seen more of in this race. The pit stop rules, 2 pit stops minimum in the race, and with drivers, there are 3 drivers in some cars, so you need 2 stops to do that, and one of those stops must be a refuel stop, but the other one doesn't have to be. And each pit stop, the minimum stationary time in the pits is 5 minutes. So not the 30 seconds or the 1 minute we've had in other races, as an end of a spin there, I think, by the looks of it, for the number 11 car of Fred Wakeman and Patrick Blakeney-Edwards. And that'll be Fred, I would suspect, in there. He usually starts his cars.
Looks like he's stopping there, Alistair, in the number 11. We're not going to see PBE if that's...
Another Cobra off.
Now that's on the rise through Schwantz.
Yeah, so is that connected? That one is that... oh, and another Cobra off across the grass. Now, that one looks to have damage, doesn't it? Yeah,
I'm not sure if that is connected. Now we see the number 80, Richard Evans, Andrew Smith and James Little down to drive that AC Cobra. Yeah, that's got damage on the rear end. It's lost. That's had heavy impact on the rear. We've now got bodywork rubbing against the tyre, which is causing the smoke. I'd say that's gone into the barrier in a very heavy manner. And he's already lost control and off the track at Coppice.
And another Cobra pulls off. The marshal's there indicating if you come around here, we don't have to have a yellow flag, get you out of the way. And another, that's an Austin Healey, that's hit the barriers as well. That looks like the same place that the Lotus went off yesterday. And that's made heavy contact. Great to see the driver out and okay, having to come out of the passenger side.
So that's on the exit of the old hairpin. There's the number 500. That is at the outside of McLean's.
Yeah.
And we've got car. I think there's oil down. I would think there's got to be something oil down. The cars are sliding into view. It's the run through Schwantz curve. We've got a damaged number 17, Roy. That's the leader, of course.
He was second.
The second place car, I should say. We've got oil down through Schwantz curve up towards McLean's, and that's and of course the safety car comes straight out to sterilise the field.
The Jaguar F-Pace onto track, and impossible to be more precise about what's going on. You're seeing the same pictures as us, and there was clearly a significant problem down there which caught out a large number of drivers, some of them at the head of the field, some of them not, some towards further back.
I'm wondering if that's that's Aston Martin project car oil. We saw that car pull off first, possibly, and then we had the issues.
The F-Pace Jaguar pace car, or safety car as it is at the moment, and there's the oil flag. The yellow and red striped flag means slippery surface, and the yellow flag means that the safety car is out and there's no overtaking. But the pace car, the Jaguar F-Pace, has picked up the leader, which is Roger Wills in the Lotus 15.
That's good. I love it. I much prefer that.
Absolutely, particularly in a race this long, because if they hadn't managed to pick up the leader, it could have really compromised a large number of cars.
Like it did races. In the Tony Dron race earlier, with Steve Soper being put almost a minute behind the leader, and that gave him a drive. So, that's good news. The other news that I would like to tell you is to kind of confirm whether or not we've got a situation. I think I'm pretty certain that we've got. I'm looking for the red and yellow flag that's been shown at McLean's. I think it's early around the lap, though. I think that's through Schwantz curve, and I'm not sure where we saw the 214 go off. And it was just being driven off, so whether that was a bit of an engine problem, but we've definitely got a bit of a dubious track surface. There's the number, is that 53 or 93? The Morgan. Yeah, it's the 93.
Yeah, the Wenmans Morgan, yes.
Now, of course, with the safety car coming out, this has given a lot of our competitors the opportunity to serve at least one of their two stops. And I'm waiting for word whether Andrew Marriott has managed to get his kit together and get down there, and he'll maybe be able to give us some information.
Is that the leader coming in there, I think? Can't quite see, it's a long shot, but the leader isn't behind the pace car anymore, so that's Roger Wills coming in to do his 5-minute stop, and we look for the yellow and blue helmet of Tim Harvey perhaps hovering to get into that car for the second stint. Or, of course, Roger Wills may stay in the car and then hand over to Tim for the third stint.
Yeah, I'm not sure what their plan is, but certainly the leader in to the pit lane, that has now allowed at the old hairpin and Craner curves where we found the issue with the track surface causing all sorts of problems. One of the fastest parts of the track, of course, Alistair.
Absolutely, yes.
Not somewhere that you want to find no grip at all. Oinhausen, Seerstorff and Andy Newell will take over the lead of this race, but of course they will have to stop twice, and I'm not sure why you wouldn't stop under safety car, to be honest. I know we've only had 20 minutes or so of this race, so there might be teams, let's call them, competitors out there who've decided to split the times equally, no matter what. And of course, we're just presuming or assuming, I should say, that the oil was laid down by the 214 car, the project car, but I'm not sure where that actually was when it was it was driven off just on the entry to Coppice, wasn't it?
And we've had a report from Duncan, our Duncan that's helping us, that there's oil down Old Hairpin Craner curves. We can now see through Schwantz as well, but those marshals were working up at Coppice.
Yeah.
So that suggests that the oil slick has actually gone round quite a lot of the back of the circuit.
Now, what was the car that pulled off to driver's left going into Coppice that I mentioned not long ago? because I'm not sure that was the 214. It was a Jaguar, wasn't it? It was an E-Type.
Oh, with the bonnet up, you mean? Yeah. I think that...
No, that car continued.
Yes, it did. So we'll... yes, we're
going to have to wait. We're in that confusing point in the proceedings where we've got cars that have pitted. We are under safety car still, and we're seeing the track surface being treated by our team of marshals. Well done, everybody, for the on the organisational side of this race meeting, because as ever they've been as efficient as ever. It maybe gives us an opportunity to thank our supporters for this race, and indeed the whole of the Donington Historic Festival. A big thank you to the Royal Automobile Club and the Pall Mall Club for their support for this race, along with DK Engineering, and of course DK Engineering, Motor Racing Legends and the Royal Automobile Club have supported the need for this live stream, and hopefully it's some consolation for spectators being unable to attend Donington Park for this event, some consolation to bring the event to you.
just looking at the timing screen, which we have direct from the timekeepers, which you can see on TSL Timing's website. The 24 car of it is now Tim Harvey. There he is in the car with the yellow and blue helmet. So that's the leading car prior to the pit stops. But this, I normally say, we need a lap or two after the pit stops to sort this out. But actually, this won't sort out till the flag.
That's
because
right.
We've got another set of pit stops.
That's right.
And we've got 3 drivers, and we don't know the relative speeds of them. So this is going to be an absolutely fascinating 2 hours, 35 minutes, because we won't know who actually net is in the lead until the very end.
That's right, because we've got such a difference in abilities with our gentlemen drivers, and we've got some real pros of this. I mean, the number 600, the MGB, has got Sam Tordoff, a touring car and British GT winner, to name but one. Mike Wiles, former Formula 1 driver, is down to drive the 214. However, we're not going to see that now, which is a shame. We were mentioning the pit stops, and we mentioned that the 5-minute stationary. And the pit maximum, but maximum of 85 minutes between stops, I think was what you were saying.
The only other relevant point with regards to the pit stops is that the gap between the 2 pit stops, if you just make your mandatory 2 and you don't make any more, is 85 minutes. So that effectively stops someone doing 1 lap and then effectively handing over to the faster driver for the whole race. There has to be a maximum of 85 minutes between the stops. So it sort of controls things without having a window.
Well, each car actually has created its own window. So when the car rejoins, it's then got an 85-minute pit window of the pit window being closed until it then reopens. There was the leader of the race before the safety car came out and before we started this pit stop phase. Car 24, Tim Harvey, now at the wheel of that Lotus 15, and he will continue on his way and rejoin the race, but join at the back of the field, which continues to circulate behind the safety car. I have a feeling that this is going to be a lengthy clear-up process, because the length of track that we've got oiled down is quite a considerable length. It's almost a third of the lap. And the marshal's still finding traces of a slippery surface.
Well, we've got some information from Duncan, who's been buzzing around trying to pick up car numbers and where they're off. We...
Do you want to give us that first? And then
we've got Andrew, I think, in the pit lane, haven't we? So 50 was off on the inside of the Craner curves, 500 on the outside of the Craner curves, and 450 has gone missing somewhere as well, and 93 we think might be missing. So that's 4 numbers that we've tried to pick up off our circuit cameras. Right,
well, the safety car certainly made it very busy down in the pit lane, but the man who's down there and can tell us all about it is Andrew Marriott.
Yeah, well, I've been buzzing around as well, but unfortunately we had a bit of a problem with the link. It's all up and running again now. So behind me you can see the damage to the Cobra. Let's walk in the garage, and Richard Evans was driving this Cobra. And Richard, I'll see if you're Richard, yes?
No, it's over there.
Oh, well, where is I've got to find Richard. Okay. Was Richard? Who was driving this car? Oh, come. No, I've got a straightforward question for you. We think somebody else dropped some oil.
It was an absolute. Oh. But after the whole hairpin was completely covered in oil, so 2 spinners in front of me. As soon as I sort of seen them spinning, I started spinning, spun along the length, went onto the grass, and then the red cobra hit me as I spun.
You don't know who dropped it though? Do you know who dropped the oil?
No, I don't know.
A bit of bodywork needs to be sorted out here.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, unfortunately. Okay.
He was reluctant to be interviewed, but in the end, of course, I had my way with him. I was going to tell you earlier that Andrew Jordan's plan was to drive the middle stint, because obviously Roy Oldenslade, who has just commissioned this car, and it's its very first race, wanted to get the maximum time, and who can blame him, because he's paid lots of money for this car. So the Andrew Jordan situation, he was going to drive the middle stint. But of course, now you've got a situation like this, it throws all the strategy completely out of the window. And somebody else we haven't maybe mentioned, but I just want to point out, is there's a Jaguar E-Type in this race, driven by Andrew Keith Lucas. Now, if you're in historic racing, that might mean something to you, because I think his dad started the CLK business, very big preparation business. But his sister is a very well-known and my favourite newsreader, weather girl in fact, Sarah Keith Lucas, although I think she's in a BBC studio somewhere, so sadly not here today. I'll try and get some more news now from down the pit lane, and let's hope this race gets back up and running again very soon. Lots of excitement down here in the Donington pits.
Thank you, Andrew. I can't believe he was reluctant to talk to Andrew Marriott. Does he know who he is?
Yes, I must admit, when I turn the BBC breakfast television on a weekend when there's a race going on, particularly when the Keith Lucas family are involved, I always think Sarah Keith Lucas might say, and at Donington this weekend.
Yes. Yeah.
But she never does. She's very professional.
Give the family a plug. Yeah, we can see that the oil starts at the top of the craners and going all the way down. We're still we're still struggling to find the culprit. We've got our detectives on the job. Just out of interest, really, isn't it? I mean, the damage is done. We've got quite a few cars damaged, and you read through a list there, Alistair, of cars that have gone missing, and we saw quite a bit of damage caused to 2 or 3 of the runners.
Well, the first number I read was 50, which I think would have been that Austin Healey that was in the barriers quite heavily. That's the David Smithies, Chris Clarkson, Mark Pangolin car. This is all speculation. The 500 I read out was Ben Gill and Ian Dalgleish in a Cobra, which we know that Cobras were involved. 93 we think was missing, was Andrew and David Wenman. We saw that car parked at the side of the track, the Morgan. And finally the 450 car, as these knock-on wheels are going off.
No speed guns here,
no.
Everybody. This is how we changed wheels in the day. A big hammer with a copper head, and you whack it as hard as you can to get the wheel nut off. That wheel coming off, and a bit of an inspection going on there. Just putting the dust cap back on that wheel, and that wire wheels on this Jaguar C-Type.
And that's the C-Type, which won Le Mans in 1951 and 1953. Which then led to the D-Type wins of the later mid-50s.
Drum brakes on this car, and a little bit of brake adjustment there, a little bit of just adjusting the brake shoes to be closer to the drum, and they're doing it on both of those front wheels. So that's Gary Pearson on the jack there. He'll be jumping into the car, and there's the wheel going back on, and there's the really quite vigorous thumping of the wheel nuts just to ensure that they're as tight as possible, and that's why they've got those 2 lugs on them. And any period footage you'll see pit stops, they're called ears, I've been told, the technical term for them.
And we can see there the Elan having a refuel stop, so we could see there the driver or the mechanic with the churn So that's one of the mandatory things about the 2 stops. One of them must be a refuel. So that
must be a refuel. Well, that's going on now, so that Elan going on. Now the number 20 Jaguar C-Type that we saw having that brake adjustment, the driver at the wheel of that car, Rudy Friedrichs, not happy with the brake performance of that car from 1953. That car's now being held until the whole field comes by, so I'm pretty sure the team were wanting to get out ahead of the safety car, and you know what, they just missed that.
And just looking down our screen, we continue to find cars that are shown as missing in action, as it were, as opposed to in the pit lane, and one of them is the number 7 Jaguar, the turquoise Jaguar of Marcus Oenhausen Scheerstorpt, who should have been handing over to Andy Newell, but that was in the lead group prior to all this problem, and that's gone missing out on track.
Let's head down to Andrew, who's still down there in the pit lane, and it's still very busy, Andrew.
It certainly is, and I've got Gregor Fiskin with me. Gregor, this is all a bit of a shame. A big drop of oil, an engine blow up, and lots of people spinning off on it.
Yeah, I mean, last time I looked, we were 18th, and suddenly now we're 6th. So maybe it's not bad news.
Not bad news for you.
Perhaps not bad. I feel sorry for the guys who've obviously had an off out there. When you hit oil, you're just a passenger.
And what about this format, these 3-hour races, Gregor? It's a super new series, isn't it?
I think it's fantastic, and I think it's really true to 60s GT racing. You know, I mean, I think there were some concerns about reliability, but I mean, I love the mix of cars, and you know, I love the strategy, and I think it's proper 60s GT racing.
Now, you're one of the biggest names in buying and selling some of these great classic cars. How's the market at the moment?
Do you know, the market is surprisingly good. I think in a strange world, people want tangible things. They want real things and assets. You know, someone said to me, what's the best return I can get on my classic car investment? Number 1, pleasure.
Absolutely. And if I win the lottery next weekend, what should I come and buy off you?
Well, if it's pre-war, I'd go for a nice 8C supercharged Alpha. If it's post-war, what about a D-Type, a C-Type, 300S Maserati? And it's something younger, maybe a McLaren F1.
That's enough of the advert. But Gregor Fiskin.
Thank you. Over and out.
Yeah, thanks, Greg. That's the first person I'd be calling if when my Euro ticket comes through. I don't know what I need to win a lot of money though, like something like 200 million or something, because I think I could spend it all. Car at the back of this field now, as we have the Lotus Elan that's been refueled, just rejoining, showing a bit of damage there. There's the 24. Now this is the car with Tim Harvey now at the wheel, and he was the car that came into the pits in the lead of this race. He's down to 17th overall, but to be honest, Alistair, the majority of cars ahead of him are still owing us one of their pit stops.
Yes, absolutely. It's as I said earlier, we really won't see this pit stop phase unwind until much later in the race, until the last of the leading cars has made its second mandatory stop. So we can just speculate where we think people are going to come out. But as you say, the vast majority of the cars ahead of the previous leader, the number 24 car, have yet to stop. And some of them up there actually are quick cars that have made their stops. And perhaps mention car number 88, which is the first of our stoppers, as it were. And that is the number 88 car of Richard Kent and Chris Ward. We know how quick
Chris Ward is.
Yeah. And that's in an E-Type. So we'll look out for that when we get back to proper racing again. And just behind them is the Cottingham Bryant Stanley. Well, what a mix that is. Jeremy Cottingham, Ollie Bryant and Harvey Stanley, all quick drivers in an E-Type. And that's car number 1. As befits a car that's entered by DK Engineering.
Those 3 drivers were actually battling wheel to wheel in our GT40 race. The 88 is in the pits. We see it there, the Kent and Ward car.
So that's its second stop, isn't it?
Let's have a look that. No, I think when you spotted that car, you'll see it's now dropped down the field.
Yeah.
That's now taking up its first pit stop. So it was kind of out of sync with what the actual running order is. And
it had ticked over the one on the screen, but it
Yeah.
hadn't actually come out of the pits. You're quite right.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah. But it's still right there. It's amongst the leaders of the stoppers.
Current leader, according to the timing screens, is the number 74. It's the Chris Childs and Chris Childs Jr., Shelby Cobra, and that leads by 5 seconds. Of course, that 5 seconds doesn't mean anything because we're all behind the safety car. It looks to me as though we've got no marshals on the track now, so the marshals have treated the oil slick, and the oil slick runs from pretty much Hollywood all the way through the Craners and all the way around the track up to at least Coppice by the looks of things. Not much dust being kicked up, but that's where we saw cars going off at McLean's. So at least up to McLean's is where that oil slick led to. There it is, still continues on through Coppice.
I wonder whether the clerk of the course has decided just to let the cars go round for a couple of laps.
Soak it up.
There, the pace, the Jaguar F-Pace is actually going down the dust as well.
And the lights are out, so that means the safety car is going to be coming in this time. And the car behind it is the 55. Now the 55 is down the order somewhat in 6th place. That's the Melling, Burton and Pattle Jaguar E-Type. Low drag is how it's described, and you'll see the smoother lines of that number 55. But just behind it, in that line of cars, once again the 55 has probably been disadvantaged there with getting stuck behind the safety car. Few cars choosing to come in the pits along with the safety car as well, so they will now be taking in that pit stop under green flag conditions.
And the one of them was actually coming out, but it's been stopped, as you described earlier, at the pit lane exit. The 144, that was a car that was in the top 5 in the safety car phase, and that is the 3 drivers, Paul and George Posciol with James Hansen.
Now that's an E-Type that is in the pit lane now to take in its first mandatory stop. We've still got a few cars at the front of this field as the field come through at racing speed through Schwann's Curve and into McLean's, kicking up all of that cement dust and oil dry, and out of McLean's up towards Coppice. We'll see more. This is going to catch our attention, isn't it, Alistair? When we see dust flying, we expect to see a car in the gravel. That's not going to be the case because we're just kicking up dust from the oil dry.
That's right, and
it will try not to get too excited.
Hopefully it will clear fairly quickly, as with so many cars on track, as you saw with the E-Type there, it wasn't taking the optimum line, it was offline, letting quicker cars through, so that will clear up any dust that's at the side of the track as well. The 600 car, you mentioned earlier, British GT winner and former British touring car driver Sam Tordoff, and I think it's Sam at the wheel because it's the pink helmet in that
good spot
blue MGB. There we see him coming towards peak helmet. I think that will be Sam Tordoff driving that car. Always runs a 600 number. JCT 600 is the family business. Big
Porsche dealership, isn't it?
Yeah, well, they've got many dealerships, I think, and they also do long-term lease cars as well. So there's Sam Tordoff coming down, just being passed by the number 6 Elan of Andrew Haddon and Sean Lynn. 1963 Elan there, chasing another of the MGBs.
I was the first person who ran Sam Tordoff in his first try in a car, on a track, out of karts. He had to go with one of the Robert Shaw Racing Clio Cup cars one day, and we knew he had talent. Didn't hang on to him. So the rest of the field then come through, and Alistair and I are going to keep a wary eye on the timing screens and give you some semblance of order. The car in the lead is the number 60 car, and that's the Gregor Fiskin Pat Blakely Edwards E-Type, and that's showing in the lead, but it's also showing that it has not served any pit stops. So with 2 hours and 17 minutes remaining, that 85-minute gap between the first and the second pit stop is going to start becoming a bit of an issue as we get to 1 hour and 20 minutes remaining. or 1 hour and 25 to be exact.
Yeah, I wonder, that's a triple-driven car, the number 60 you were just talking about, which is in shot, isn't it? Is that it with its boot flapping a little bit? Yes, it is. So that's the car that's actually leading the race at the moment, the white E-Type with the blue stripes down the bonnet and the soft top. That's driven by Sam Hancock, Gregor Fiskin and Patrick Blakeney-Edwards. Gregor Fiskin was talking to Andrew Marriott just a few minutes ago, and that car in the lead. I wonder whether they're 3 drivers, whether they said an hour each.
Yes, and whatever comes, if the safety car comes out, that's it. You're going to have to drive around behind the safety car.
Yeah.
Now, you mentioned the rear boot of this car being slightly open.
No, it was actually loose.
Ah, it is loose.
Yes.
But we've seen another. Yeah.
I know
now,
what you're
I've had a tweet. Mickey Hetherington has asked why the E-Types run their boot lids slightly open. Do you know that?
Cooling the rear brakes.
Is that what it's for?
There are ducts up into the boot, and they open the boot lid, and it creates a low pressure area and sucks that air through.
The hot air.
Yeah.
Ah, right. So it's kind of the air flowing over it sucks the heat out.
Yeah.
Right.
That's
Brilliant.
right.
There's your answer, Michael.
I'm glad you asked that, Michael, because I was going to mention that in an earlier race. I think it was yesterday we had the Jaguar Classic race, and we just never got time. It was too busy.
Yeah, too busy.
Lots of them running with that the boot lid open.
So tweet in your inquiries, hashtag Donington Historics. I'm at Bradders3078, and Andrew Marriott is at Pitlane Andy. So keep those inquiries coming. It gives us, it certainly educated me.
And former British touring car champion from 1992 and current commentator on ITV for British touring cars, along with David Addison. Tim Harvey there in the yellow helmet with the blue top on it in Roger Will's Lotus 15. Now that's certainly a contender for the win. Roger was leading prior to the pit stops, but of course, as we've said many times, it's all shuffled up for a while, but there's no reason why that car can't come back through to take the win. It's currently running in 7th place, just sliding up the inside there of one of the listers, the number 8 car, which was getting very sideways, wasn't it?
He's having a ball, isn't he?
And Tim Harvey thanks him for keeping over there on the right-hand side as they go up through Coppice.
I'm wondering if the driver, even who's just slid down the inside, even knew that Tim was there, because he was just so decisive, wasn't he? And then he was fully sideways to the exit curb. He's probably been assisted by the oil dry.
So the Tim Harvey we're following here in the New Zealander Roger Will's own car number 24, Lotus 15 with a 2-litre engine, coming past one of the early Porsche 911s, and it's actually coming up behind the car that's showing as leading on our screen, but it's a lap ahead of Tim Harvey. Now look at the damage at the front of Roy Alderslade's Daytona Cobra Coupe, which will be shared with Andrew Jordan and Michael Grant Peterkin. That was one of the cars that got caught up in that incident, but thankfully that's been repaired. That's prodigious use of the tape there, isn't it, holding that car together?
I'm not happy with the use of yellow tape on the front of that car, though. I would have thought they would have had some dark blue tape there. I'll have a word with Mike Jordan about that. The yellow showing up very distinctly on the front of that car. So that car was one of the contenders, Alistair. It's not quite out of contention yet, though. It's only running 7th, and it's behind the Lotus 15 of Tim Harvey. Just going to see what the gap was. It's not very much at the line, 1.7 seconds.
Yeah. And they were first and second prior to the incident, so they've really kept their positions relative to each other, haven't they?
However, he's got a job to catch Tim Harvey, who's just gone and put in the race's fastest lap so far. 2 hours and 13 minutes is how much time we have left, and Tim Harvey is on a charge. He's just gone past the Jaguar E-Type of the number 55 Melling, Burton and Pattle, and that has put him up to 5th spot already. Now we're getting to the point where Harvey is going to be in the actual lead of this race. He's chasing down the Childs Cobra.
Yeah,
now
which is a minute ahead.
A minute ahead, right, okay. Now they've pitted, but the cars in 1st, 2nd and 3rd have not.
Yeah.
So from gauging where we are in this race, I'd say the actual leader is the car that has pitted already, and that's the number 74, Chris Childs Jr. and Chris Childs Sr. at the wheel, and will be sharing that Shelby Cobra.
Lovely to follow Tim Harvey through. We've followed various drivers over this weekend and often commented at how smooth they are, and Tim Harvey, another example of a retired professional driver now, but still absolutely on the button in terms of his skills, and lovely to see the way he just drifts that car through. There's the 74 car, you've just mentioned that. That's the car that's just ahead of Tim Harvey. That's the Childs and Childs Cobra, started by Childs Jr., so I assume they've done their pit stop, so now Childs Sr. on board that, although Childs Jr., this is where we don't know. Childs Jr. could have stayed on, couldn't he, and done 2 stints, we don't know. But anyway, at 4th place overall, car number 74, just ahead of the Wills Harvey car. Now they've just taken 3rd place, so there was a position swap as we were watching, and the car they went by was the Shelby Mustang, which was the white car with the blue stripes in the back of the picture. You'll probably see it just come through there. That's it. It's just lost for 3rd place to the number 74, which has taken that 3rd place. Meantime, back with our flappy boot number 60, which is leading the race, although it is owing everybody a pit stop.
Yes, and let's keep an eye on that battle for 5th and 6th as the number 55 continues being pressured by the 60. Just trying to pick that battle up. That's not an actual battle on track. The 55 Melling Burton Paddle car has just been overtaken by Tim Harvey a couple of laps ago. Now Tim Harvey, we mentioned the gap between, there's Tim Harvey now, just coming across the line now. And Tim Harvey has got 58 and not quite on the pace of his fastest lap. We've got a car off in the gravel at McLean's, and it's the number 14, Rob Cool, Tom Smith, Steve Winter in the MGB, and that car looks like it's beached. Now the question is, can we get a snatch tractor up there and pull that car out of harm's way under local yellows? Beautiful to watch Tim Harvey, you mentioned, Alistair, and
wonderful.
It really is. You can see him working. Great work from the number 14 MGB. He's managed to, now considering how deep he was in the gravel, that in itself was quite a really showing real ability in clutch control to get that car out the gravel. That's great. That's avoided any kind of safety car, and that car will now continue.
So many cars to look at. We're following the Lister Nobley, I think, now number 66, but also just behind number 74 is the Charles and Charles car, but the 66 car, Niall McFadden and Ben Mitchell, and then it's being passed or lapped by the 74 Chris Charles Jr. and Senior, as that goes on its way in 3rd place. Tim Harvey. Oh, and we've got a retirement on the grass. Is that a spin, perhaps?
Is that a spin, or
and that's we've seen that in strife before. That's Fred Wakeman and Patrick Blakeney Edwards.
Yes, it's having a bit of a character building race.
Yeah.
You were about to mention Tim Harvey just putting in another fastest lap last time through. He's got the fastest lap down to a 1 minute 20.383. So he continues his charge, and
he is significantly quicker than anyone else on track, isn't he? By over 4 seconds a lap.
That time by, the race for the race, so to speak, is between the 2nd place number 74 of the Childs, who is currently, I'm trying to fathom out a gap between that car and Tim Harvey. We're about to see what that is, Alistair, as Tim Harvey comes through.
Yes, we are.
We'll keep an eye on that. It was about 50 seconds last time by, so we've got to wait a little while. But the reason I'm saying that is because the cars, certainly the car at the front of the field, the number 60, we know that car with Sam Hancock, Gregor Fiskin and Pat Blakeney Edwards, they look like they're going to be lapping in about 8 minutes, because we think we're assuming they're going to share the 3-hour race equally and take a pit stop on the first hour and a pit stop an hour and 25 minutes later. that stops them taking a pit stop every hour, that 85-minute rule.
It's 85 minutes maximum between pit stops.
Yes, so but they haven't pit stopped now. So if he pit stops in 8 minutes' time, he's not going to be able to pit stop for another hour and 25.
No, it's the maximum time between them. It's not the time between them. So you can't
run.
Sorry.
Can't
run for
so
more than
within that
minutes.
85 minutes. Right, okay.
Yeah. So they can go
right.
60, 60, 60
Got
if they
you.
want
right.
to.
Yeah, that's exactly what they're going to do.
Yeah.
Right, that makes more sense.
So Tim Harvey, it is number 24 now. We were waiting for when's he going to cross the line. He's coming down the back straight now, so we'll wait just for a few moments to see his time come up. In the meantime, we're following the Elan and the early Porsche 911 down into the old hairpin, and you can see that most of that absorbent material dust has cleared away now, which is good. There's the Chris Childs 74 car, and whilst Joe was talking about it, went up one place to second.
Yeah, I've got some great information that's just come in from Josh Barrett, and a big thank you here. The 74 Cobra pit stop showing was a drive-through and therefore not a mandatory 5 minute. So Childs is kind of, for that reason, Childs is out of contention as the safety car comes out. The safety car comes out, not quite sure why that is, but we're showing safety car boards, and we were about to see our E-Pace Jaguar come out of the pit lane and take control of this field. So from that point then, the first car that has taken one of its mandatory stops in the field is the number 24 Lotus 15 of Roger Wills and Tim Harvey. Tim Harvey at the wheel of the car. We'll try and find out what's happening. While we try and find out why we've got a safety car, let's head down to the pits for Andrew Marriott.
Yeah, just a quick one from me. I think it's going to be a lot of action very soon, but they just before that safety car came out, they put the board out to the Fiskin car to come in, so it was the inboard for him, so I'm expecting that car to be right here any moment now. But I saw Gregor with his crash helmet on 25 minutes ago, so I'm not convinced it didn't make one stop already, so we'll have to check this out.
Thank you, Andrew. The timing screen certainly showing them not having stopped, and the safety car is now trying to fathom out where that is. Craner Curves.
Yeah.
He's gathered the field up now, and the first car in the train. Sorry, Elsa?
Not the leader at the moment, though.
No, he hasn't picked up the leader.
But Andrew's just said the leader's due to go in the pits, so it could have already called in. I did notice that the Childs car is now showing 2 pit stops, so thanks to Josh Barrett for pointing out what we'd missed earlier, which was that it was a drive-through. So that is now their first mandatory stop.
I'm going to task Josh with something else. I'm going to ask Josh, does he know why it was given the penalty? That'll keep him happy, keep him occupied for a few minutes. Don't forget, you can tweet in at Bradders3078, at Pitlane Andy, and it's hashtag Donington Historics. That'll get through to Alistair and I in the booth. There's the leader. We heard Andrew Marriott saying he was expecting that car with him. If he can describe the pit, he can probably see a lot more what's going on during that stop, so we'll wait and see if we've got word from Andrew.
That's not Gregor Fiskin getting out, and I think Andrew was suggesting it might have been Gregor.
Let's head down there, Andrew.
Yeah, definitely Sam Hancock has just climbed out of the car in a moment. I'll get a word with him. And I don't see anybody. Gregor Fiskin has had his crash helmet on for a long time. That's what confused me. So Gregor is going to get into the car now, and we'll grab hold of Sam. Just see if he's taken his helmet off. Why don't you just go back to the booth for a moment, and then as soon as I've got Sam by my side, we can get some words with him. But we're having a great run in this Jaguar, which is very much in the Cunningham colours, isn't it? Remember the Briggs Cunningham team ran Jaguars a long time ago, and of course that's the racing colours of America, the white with the blue stripes. So interesting to see that. And just talking about Collier, talking about that particular outfit, there are a lot of their cars in the Collier Museum in Naples, Florida. And that's what I was trying to say before I got my words all muddled up.
I've actually visited the Collier Museum in Naples, Florida. Andrew, I know, don't know why I did that. I used to visit Naples a lot back in the day. The safety car, of course, is for the recovery of the number 11. I forgot that car was out there on the lawn, and I'm not quite sure where that is on the track. Is that just out of the old hairpin or something? I'm not quite sure. It's the.
It might be on the run to Coppice, actually. That's the internal road, is it, to... We'll find out now. We'll get a longer shot. I think that might be the run.
We are. That car's going to be towed out of harm's way.
Now, that car is being shared, Fred Wakeman and Patrick Blakeney-Edwards. That looked like Patrick rather than Fred, because Fred runs dark overalls.
Let's head back to the pits. Back to Andrew.
I've got Sam here, but actually I've got a house just a mile away from that museum, so I go there regularly. Available for rent, folks. A beautiful part of Florida. But so much of the advert. Let's go back to Sam Hancock. Sam, a terrific run there.
Yeah, thanks very much. It was tricky out there because when the oil went down for the first safety car period, it was literally the whole lap on the line and even off the line. And understandably, the marshals, who worked really hard to cover it with sand, did the bit that was visual on the line. But then when we resumed green flag racing and you go wide of where the sand is, you couldn't see the oil, but you could certainly feel it.
And what's the strategy? Gregor's going to go in the car then, and what will you do after that?
I honestly have no idea. I'm not sure we have a strategy. I was wondering why we didn't pit during the first safety car, but we've got another one now, so it'll all balance. I don't know. I think we're making it up as we go along.
Very good. They're making it up as they go along, but they're not doing a bad job of it.
Thank you, Andrew. And you can pay me some commission, because I knew you had a house in Naples open for rent. Josh Barrett has cleared that up. It wasn't a penalty. Misunderstood the tweet there, Josh, and thanks for clearing it up. It wasn't a drive-through penalty. It was that Chris Giles in the 74 Cobra followed the safety car into the pits but drove straight through. He didn't go into his penalty box and didn't serve one of his mandatory stops. So he basically drove through the pit lane. That's what cost him the time, and that's what made that look like it was on the screen. I think we might have Andrew back. No, not the case.
Well, we can see Gregor Fispin being strapped into the number 60 car, which was leading when it came into the pits. But guess who's gone to the top of the timing screen now as the first set of pit stops starts to unwind a little bit? It's the Tim Harvey car, number 24.
I think you're right though, Alistair. I think with this complex race format of two mandatory stops, we're not really going to know exactly where we are. We're going to try and keep that feel for where we are, and I think we've read it right so far, and now everybody's on the same playing field. There are some teams showing two pit stops, but we'll bear in mind that Charles's first was just a mistake of driving through the pit lane. We'll keep that in mind. But I think you're right. I think we're probably not going to know where we are until at least the last half hour of this race. Typical endurance race, really.
Yeah, absolutely, yes. And you're watching Tim Harvey there scything his way through a variety of British marks like the MGB there, the Triumph just behind as he makes his way through. But as often happens, the cars that were in the lead early on in the race, it's shaken out now, and we're seeing once again the Wills and Harvey car leading, and the Roy Alderslade and Andrew Jordan car in second place, 24 from 17, and then in third place we've got the number 75 of Littlejohn and Evans, the Elan, and they've all taken their first stops. So as Joe has just said, most of the cars now, in fact all of the cars on our screen, have done their one stop. So
it's a little bit easier to read.
We've got a settled position for the moment.
We're going to keep a handle on it. Alistair's going to take a pit stop of his own for 30 minutes or so. I'm going to be joined in the commentary booth by Peter Snowden, who's going to take over, and then it'll be Peter who will continue with Alistair for taking us up to the final hour. Snowy's just getting kitted up there, and this race beginning to shape up, Snowy, and we've got a situation now where we've got Tim Harvey who's driving that car with some abandon. He certainly knows how to get the best out of this Lotus 15, and he's been very decisive through traffic.
I love, Joe, how you've made the very first statement I'm going to make is a pretty obvious one. Tim Harvey doesn't know how to drive a car any other way.
Yeah, that is true.
With verve and gay abandon, whatever.
Yeah,
You're absolutely, it's totally accurate. But of course, that's what Tim Harvey's going to do, isn't it? There's a reason, as my old mentor used to say, Colin Blair, somebody like that. There's a reason they've won championships, Peter. He's won the 1992 British Touring Car Champion. He's a 2-time Porsche Carrera Cup champion. That hasn't happened by accident, has it?
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. Yeah. It's nothing of a surprise that we've got Tim Harvey at the front of this field, but when you consider, all right, they may not be in cars as competitive as a Lotus 15 in this field of cars, but we have got the likes of another touring car champion in the form of Andrew Jordan. We've got
somewhat more recently in 2013 as well.
Yeah.
Sorry, Tim.
Sam Tordov's been mentioned, but Sam in the number 600 MGB, so he's not going to be at the front of the field, but he's certainly going to be at the forefront of his class.
And I'm sure that yourself and Alistair have covered it, but the history of that little Lotus there, an ex-Bruce McLaren car, driven in period by him and won in period with him, of course eponymous of McLaren cars, but that's why it's so close to Roger Will's heart, being a Kiwi himself. That's a car. He's had many nice cars.
Has he owned it very long?
It's a few years now. I guess I'm going to say 5 or so years, but I'm sure he'll tell us or correct us exactly. But I'd have thought it's at least a good 5 years. And of course he's won at Goodwood. And I did say in the commentary this morning on the qualifying this, when Alice and I covered this, he won one of the big races. I think I'm not sure which one it was at Goodwood only about 2 or 3 years ago in that car. And such was the stature of doing that, he actually bumped Formula 1 off the front cover of Autosport the week that Thursday's issue. And it was that car winning at Goodwood because it was the McLaren, it was the Kiwi, it was the history, and it was just like, and it was, I did say to him at the time, if you haven't bought a copy of that and had it framed, there's something wrong with you.
Yes.
You are genuinely, it's not a spoof one, not you've got a mate who's a graphic artist who's done it, you are genuinely the front cover of Autosport. Not Lewis Hamilton, Roger Wills in an ex-Bruce McLaren Lotus.
Yeah, that is quite a provenance. The car that Peter is talking about, I'm going to slip into calling you Snowy, so for all of our listeners and viewers, if I call him Peter, it means I'm being very official. If I call him Snowy, it's I'm far too relaxed. So we'll just, we were talking about the Lotus 15s, currently leading. Last time through, it's being chased down somewhat by the number 17 Shelby Daytona Cobra Coupe of Alderslade and Jordan. I think Andrew Jordan has now jumped into that car. However, it's just not got the pace. And as I say that, Tim Harvey has extended that fastest lap into the 19s. He's just done a 1 minute 19.595. Now, last time by, the Jordan car, the 17 Shelby Daytona, did a 1 minute 20.8, and the gap's gone out to 11.3 seconds. So with Tim Harvey, former British Touring Car Champion, being chased down by Andrew Jordan, former British Touring Car Champion, we've got a battle of the talents, let's say, at the front of this field. In third place, we've got the number 75, which is the Simon Evans, James Littlejohn Lotus Elan. And I'm going to say, Snowy, really, does a Lotus Elan have any right to be there? It's not just the only Lotus Elan. We've got the Haddon and Sean Lynn Lotus Elan S1 in fourth spot as well. I would have thought the E-types would have been quicker.
Well, you'd have thought so, but that E-type in fifth place, the 88 car, that's driven by Kenton Ward. That's going to be Chris Ward, former chief instructor of the Silverton circuit, and knows that place very well, and a consummate historic racer, and wins are up at the front in most things. Interestingly, James Littlejohn, again a professional driver, and he raced a lot with Roger Wills. In fact, they won the Spa 6 Hour outright together in Roger Wills GT40 when he had it, so no stranger to that. So Roger Wills, I'm sure, will be quite happy to see that James Littlejohn is behind him now as his driver coach. I'm sure that'll be. Tim Harvey won't, of course, want a younger British Touring Car Champion in the shape of Andrew Jordan to come there. I just wondered, a quick thought for you there, it isn't that far down the order in terms of its lap times compared to qualifying. But of course that number 17 Cobra's had a fair bit of impact and damage. I just wonder if a little bit of steering or tracking slightly out, something just affect that car at the front.
It's not just the aerodynamics.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
the whole point of the Shelby Daytona Coupe was to refine the lines and make it a sleeker, more aerodynamic friendly. When I say aerodynamic, I don't mean downforce.
No,
It's
exactly.
all about cutting through the air in those.
It was all about slippery stuff in those days.
Yes.
In fact, the reason that the only bit of aerodynamics they really had on those cars was that cam tail on the back, because they created lift, which started with the project cars, ironically, at Le Mans back in Aston cars back in 62, when they created lift too much at about 175. So they came up with this cam tail that you see particularly on these Daytona Cobras, the project car, the Ferrari 250 GTOs. What I was meaning was more mechanically, it's had a thump on that front corner.
Yeah.
It's possibly only bodywork, but there's always that collateral, isn't there? You never know what might be out of line underneath. Has it got a bit of toe out or a bit of toe in or something? And it might be that Andrew Jordan's natural skills as a touring car champion are overriding that, but we don't know how hard he may be having to work to get 1 minute 20 out of that car. It might be 10% harder than it was in qualifying.
Well, we know how quick Andrew can drive a classic Porsche as well.
He could drive a wheelbarrow quickly.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's the
And he's also a very quick rallycross driver, so he's quite comfortable at 45-degree angles.
So really, track limits aren't a problem to him. It doesn't really matter where he goes.
Really,
it's rules. He's got to follow the rules, but it doesn't really matter. You mentioned about the E-types. What I thought was fascinating earlier was watching the number 60 E-type. There's two different specifications E-type, and they're really obvious to the eye. You mentioned the 55 car, which is Martin Melling's car, the low drag, which is quite distinctive. Just take the low drag side of it out of it at the moment. That's a full lightweight, and that means it's got an alloy block. The road cars had a cast iron block. It's got alloy casings. It's got magnesium wheels, that kind of thing. It is a full lightweight as per period. That's what they ran. The very pretty number 60 car that we saw a little bit earlier on, with Gregor Fiskin, or Sam Hancock driving that first, and then Gregor Fiskin getting it. That's a semi-lightweight. If you look at it, it's got proper chrome door handles, chrome door catches, not leather straps. It's got a steel block, on our cast iron block, and that's a semi-lightweight on different wheels and the whole thing. So it's much more a road car with its fabric hood. And that's why they're so popular. That's why his Grace, the Duke of Richmond, loves them at Goodwood, because they look exactly like they raced in period. Whereas the sort of full lightweights are just that little bit further, bit more developed in period. That's how they work.
What do you prefer? I've got to say, I love the look of the lightweights, where they've had all of the bumpers removed, and you can see what what context the car has been developed in.
There's two schools of thought. I absolutely get what you're saying, that the idea of having basically what I prefer, whichever's quickest and whichever wins, is the first answer. The idea of a semi-lightweight looking like a road car, i.e. that wolf in sheep's clothing, that bit of a Q car of it just looks like a nice car, but in actual fact it's really, really quite quick as well in the background. And then you've got the full lightweights. I'm very, very lucky and privileged to have raced the very car we've been talking about here, the number 55 car, the low drag, with Martin Melling, who owns that car. We've done the Spa 6 Hour with Rob Hall in that car. It's an absolutely fantastic car, and I've raced a couple of those lightweights. And there is something that, as Joe's just said, there is something just raw about it. It's developed. That's
a good word for it, actually, raw.
Yeah, and they're a handful, and they're a tricky car to set up, those E-types as well, because they've got to, being homologated in period, you've got a very strange suspension setup on it, as they've got torsion bar suspension. So you've basically got a torsion bar, a long bar that goes back down from the front suspension all the way down to underneath the chassis. And that's how you've got to set the car up and how you adjust it. And it's a lovely shot of that 55 car there as we're talking now, coming past the number 20.
You can see there's a perfect example there. There's the number 60 Jaguar E-Type behind the 55 now, and you can distinctly see the differences. The chrome bumpers on the 60, the bumpers have been completely removed on the 55, and you can kind of see the air flowing across those smooth lines, can't you?
Yeah, and it's got the fast filler fuel tank, etc. like that. Whereas the number 60 car, as you say, it's got its chrome trims around the headlamp fairing still. It's got its hood, its bumpers, and even with its overriders, which it didn't need to have. It's all the extra, but it looks exactly like a road car. A bit of dust going off there as we go through Coppers. Have we got somebody off at Redgate? We've got a Mustang off at Redgate. Is that number 72? It is number 72. Is that?
That's the Nick Sleep, Alex Montgomery, Joel Wickham Ford Shelby Mustang. That looked like a harmless off. Was that Redgate?
That was Redgate. Yeah.
Redgate.
It's run through the gravel. Yeah.
Yeah. So he's off into the gravel, but he's making his way out. So what exactly is different underneath the aesthetics of those two cars? Because the 55, looks like a pure race car, whereas the number 60 E-Type looks like a road car.
Much more based on the road car, the semi-lightweight, the number 60 car. Much more based on a road car. It's got the cast iron block, full alloy block on the full lightweights. A wide angle head, as in the angle of the valves is different, so it's a much more developed car. Different gearbox casings, back axles, all sorts of things.
Yeah,
magnesium wheels, all that kind of stuff.
Got
Takes it to a whole different level underneath. It is very much a racing car, and I'm, as I said, very lucky to have raced that actual car. And I tell you, racing that round Spa at night.
Is that the car?
That the car,
right.
that's it. With a couple of wet candles for headlights is absolutely great fun.
Yes,
Rob Hall and I had an absolute hoot in that in the Spa 6 hour. Very big thank you to Martin Melling for allowing us to do that. And we got a good result out of it for him as well.
Yeah, and quite nicely, as we were watching the 55 E-Type, the leader came through. He's came through on a 120.1, not quite as quick as his fastest lap pace, however, quick enough to continue to keep Andrew Jordan behind him in the number 17. The gap out to 18 seconds. And then we await a little while for the third place car, which is the number 75, Simon Evans, James Littlejohn, Lotus Elan, the 26R in third spot. Then we've got the 88, that's the Kenton Ward E-Type. They've moved ahead. There was a Lotus Elan in that fourth spot. That was the Haddon and Sean Lynn car. Now that car's down to seventh. Not sure why that's happened, but it has dropped down the order a little bit. There's the number 6 Lotus Elan just coming through there. Ahead of it is the number 1 car of Cottingham, Bryant and Stanley. Then ahead of that is the number 8 Gerardo Cottingham, Lister Jaguar Coaston. The other thing I've noticed is we've got drivers that are jumping into more than one car in this 3-hour race.
Yeah, PB's one of those, isn't he? Patrick Blakeney-Edwards, he's driving.
James Cottingham, I notice as
he's
well.
not content with driving in almost every race here today. He's driving 2 cars in one race. That's just plain greedy, isn't it? I mean, his cup must overfloweth. Lucky chap. I'd like to drive 1 car in a race. Never mind 2 in a race. That's just great. Oh, we've got more dust action at it looks like Redgate again. Is that Redgate? It's a Coppice actually. I think it is. Yes. Was it one of the Porsches running wide?
Yeah, one of the Porsches running wide into the gravel and out of the gravel at the same time, just causing some excitement there, as we saw the dust fly.
Well, it's one of those corners, Joe, and Joe, you must have done the circuit in the day when you've done it. It's one of those corners on the camera angle that we're watching, because we're seeing it from the front, so it's slightly foreshortened. They appear over a brow and turn, and it looks great. The other way around from the driver's view is that you come out of McLean's, go up to drop down a dip and a rise, and the braking point and turning point is on a brow, which is the very thing you don't want the track to do underneath you.
You turn
exactly.
in before the
so
apex.
You turn in and you sort of like you hope, and you kind of throw a sort of anchor out the window and think, well, I think the apex is round there somewhere, and it's a late apex as well.
How many times have you turned in and you've been too far to the right of the apex?
That's it. Turned in too early. And have to
Yes.
recorrect and have 2 stabs at it. Yeah, it's always good. That's always good practice.
Yeah,
Make sure it's got a good strong front end on the car.
I also think, and I think watching the cars here this weekend at the Donington Historic Festival, we've seen the flowing nature of Donington Park, and there's nothing better than seeing classic and historic racing on a circuit like this. It's got such a flow to it, isn't it? And it's a momentum circuit, isn't it? Even the tighter corners, such as the old hairpin, very, very fast corner. It's a lot faster than it looks.
It's a very deceptive corner as well, because
Yes.
you arrive, because
Is it off camber?
It is, but you get that roller coaster ride down from. People often forget there's another corner. People often forget the name of Hollywood. You come out of Redgate, then you've got Hollywood, then you've got the Cranies. We always talk about the Cranies. You've got that roller coaster ride where you want to not go too far over to the right in the Cranies. You want to be on the left-hand side to get a good run through the old hairpin. But the old hairpin, it's got a massive magnet out on the left-hand side, and it wants to pull you over there all the time. And you think you've got it, and all of a sudden you're on the grass, and it's another one. You're back then up to Schwanz. I think one of the things that this circuit does lend itself to, as you said, Joe, it's got gradients and contours. It's very flowing, and we can see this. It's evidenced perfectly in the first few cars on the circuit. We've got an eclectic mix of cars here. We've got a Lotus 15 at the head of the field here. Now, okay, It's got Tim Harvey in it and Roger Wills. Roger Wills is no slouch as a gentleman driver, and Tim Harvey,
you're right.
He's old and he likes cake, but he's won championships. We're allowed to say that. It's got so bad now.
He's only gone with the cake since he finished his professional career.
Well, he has, but it's got to the point now where people are making cake for him.
I know.
And tasting it. And today, he had Mike Wilds was telling me in great excitement today that He said Tim Harvey's had the first bit of Wildsey cake. Now there's a
That's
pit.
not a euphemism, is it?
Well, exactly, there's a pit report for you, if ever there was. But going back to what I was saying there, the differences in cars, the Lotus 15, it weighs 2 parts of nothing. Arguably the engine might weigh more, the biggest part of the car, more than the rest of the chassis. It's not got a lot of power, but it's up there at the front. You've then got a Shelby Daytona Cobra Coupe behind it, which is, if I say agricultural, it's not completely unfair to it. It's a Cobra designed by a chicken farmer in Texas that they put a nice body on it. That's what it is effectively, isn't it? A big front engine car. Then in the next place you've got, as you mentioned quite rightly, a Lotus Elan 26R. Well, there was never much more than a few matchsticks to one of those in the first place. Then they made a light version called the 26R and took racing. Then you've got an E-Type. So you've got light sports racing cars, a heavy GT front engine car, followed by another light one, followed by a GT car, and it just proves it can work. They're all doing the same sorts of times.
Yeah, and they achieve those lap times in such different ways. And there's a great shot there of the number 9 Porsche and the number 4 Mustang. Both American muscle against European ingenuity, I think is a good way of describing that.
But the big thing, car vehicle dynamics wise, that will cater is this is a 3-hour race. Okay, those light cars will use their brakes and wear their tyres out a lot less compared to the big GT cars. As they get further down into the race, brakes become an issue because they've got so much more physical mass to stop each time. Every corner they're doing this, it's going to wear the brakes out more, and it's going to be a lot hard, and they're a lot heavier, a lot harder on their tyres because the cars are so much more physically heavy, and they're a real handful. I mean, Tim Harvey's got an easy job there. It's light, it's a little thing he's floating around.
Oh, you mean physically? You mean he's got an easier job physically because the car's lighter, whereas the big muscle cars, you have to literally...
It's a Sunday drive in the park for him. He's had cake before he goes out. He's just relaxed. He's just like, I'm leading a race. Well, I'm a racing driver. It's what I'm supposed to do. That's his CV. He's doing exactly what he's supposed to do.
There's Sam Tordoff in the 600. I think it's Sam Tordoff. I'm not sure who started that car. There's a little bit of a matrix. Sorry, it's gone. That was it. I think he took over the car from Richard Woolmer, the MGB, in the pale blue with the biscuit coloured roof. Just in front of him there, the number 71 is the TR4.
It's not biscuit colour, that's powder blue with the Old English white roof.
Is that what it's called? Old English white. The TR4 ahead of him.
He's thinking about food again.
Car 71, Alan Ross Jones, Daniel Ross Jones with Mark Hales in that car, in the TR4.
No stranger to a variety of cars, Mr. Hales.
Yeah.
To say the very least. I mean, a consummate racer in his day as well. I mean, TVR Tuscans, etc. Just to say the least of it. But of course, very involved with Nick Mason and 10 Tenths and looking after his collection of cars, and driven and raced a whole series of cars there. Most notably, probably most famously, that glorious 250 GTO that was second at Le Mans in 1962. I was going to say, if you're going to own if you're going to own a GTO, I mean, not everybody's got pockets that deep, but if you're going to own a GTO, have one that's finished second at Le Mans. It's pretty impressive. But Nick Mason's had that car for a very long time.
We just saw the number 24 that's continuing to lead. He's extended that lead to 22 seconds as we look at the battle of the E-types. Car number 2 and car number 1. There's the leader, car 24. It's the Lotus 15. Now this car is dated at 1958, so this car, by dint of mark number, came before the Lotus 23. The Lotus 23B came after this Lotus 15, but very
logical, wouldn't it? Yeah.
Very similar in.
I'd suggest probably 8 models later.
Sarcasm's always been the lowest form, Snowy. Continue.
I know you taught me well.
There's the 59
Porsche off again. Yes, that's not the first time it's done that.
And Maxwell Lynn, Andrew Haddon in the 911. We've seen a few of those Porsches and these cars that pretty much derive from road cars, being able to go across gravel, continue to drive through, and out the other side, which is a big bonus because we don't have to then bring out the safety car. There's the 17 in second spot. Andrew Jordan still at the wheel. That's the car that's bearing damage on the left-hand front of the car. 25 seconds. Jordan just can't keep the pace of the Lotus 15 in front of it. And there is the number 75, the Little John and Evans car that is currently in third. The bright yellow Lotus Elan, I think it's 1 lap down off the number 17. I'll try and get a little bit more scope track position wise. I do indeed think that the number 75 Lotus Elan has gone 1 lap down from that car in second place. So only 2 cars now remaining on the lead lap, and the number 75 has gone down a lap. We've got about 3 or 4 cars, might be more, until the timing screens update. Just making his way through the traffic now, the slow traffic for Andrew Jordan. Porsche 911 Triumph TR4, and he's just cleared the Lotus Elan. Lotus Elan choosing to go down the middle of the Austin Healey and the Porsche.
Just look at the that number 17 Cobra on the screen there. There's quite a bit of damage. We've talked about the damage at the front of the car, on the front left-hand side, and we mentioned potential collateral damage. If you look a bit further down the side, the door skin is damaged, and the silencer to side exhaust on that car, side exit exhaust, that's quite heavily damaged as well. And you just wonder if there is something underneath there, say cooling ducts, whatever, all that stuff that's immediately behind that front area there, really obvious, but the ducting to the brakes, has it lost some of that cooling duct? Is its braking not working as well? And we did say that, we're approaching just approaching half distance now. The GT cars, the race will change as they get later into the race. They will start to, their tyres will be more tired. I was going to
ask you that,
but their brakes will go.
Yeah, and I was going to ask you that about tyres. And are we seeing any element of tyre management? I know we see it as a modern racing thing. We talk about tyre management all the time in modern contemporary racing. It doesn't matter what we race. I would imagine it's the same there. However, it's on treaded tyres. You can see when your tyres have gone off because it's got no tread left.
Absolutely, but it's a fixed tyre. It's a Dunlop. It's a control tyre. It's a fixed compound. So it's the same for the whole field. Yes, so you haven't got to worry about compounds. However, what's the most variable change thing in a racing car? The driver, the most easily changed component of the driver. How a driver uses those tyres, and that's what you need. You need somebody that can change wheels. We saw that earlier on the C-Type with Gary Pearson on the jack there, and the two-eared spinners doing it all old style as per Le Mans, all races as it should be. But it obviously takes more time. Now we do have reasonably long pit stops here, so it's possible, and you'll see them potentially changing outside tyres as opposed to an axle, so front or rear. They'll probably change the outsides because obviously that's the ones that are loaded the most.
Yeah, here at Donington Park, it's all right-handers.
Yeah, big hairy GT cars are going to load up that left rear. So depending on how hard your driver is, and you've got a couple of corners here, just McLean's and Coppice. McLean's, it's putting a lot on that left rear all the time as you're going through there at a fair pace. Old Hairpin will do the same. Redgate will do the same. Coppice will do the same. There's 4 big corners there that are going to load that tyre up. So it looks spectacular. Nobody's drifting. Although I've seen a couple of E-Types just stepping out. That's one thing. But I'm not suggesting they power slide out, but if you're loading to the point where you've got the car just on that balance, it looks great, and it's potentially quicker while the tyres are new, but it will shorten that life of that tyre so quickly, and that certainly the performance on these tyres, it's just like you hear on Sir Lewis Hamilton, etc. on Formula 1. The performance just drops off a cliff. Right. It's suddenly gone where your lap time can suddenly go up 3-5 seconds because I just can't get anything out of the tyre. They've just gone. And they're very strange, because don't forget they're a cross fly as well. They're not a radial.
Yeah,
which is
why we're seeing such beautiful drifting driving.
And the tyre management of those is you've got to get heat into them to start with. And I've always described them as it's almost like a hydrofoil boat in the water. It goes out, you can drive it around, you can move the boat in the harbour. But once you've got to get the tyres up to temperature, and you've got to get basically the film, the surface of the tyre, at a certain nice temperature that the car will then float on that film and not wear the actual carcass of the tyre out.
Oh wow!
And
really?
that's the skill to it. It's almost like that hydrofoil. Get it up on its foils, and it's sitting there above the water. And it's not to use them too much. And of course, one lock up under braking, big heavy GT car into the chicane or something, locks a wheel. We see it. You've got a flat spot, and that will find it every time. So you've got to drive around that. So there is a great deal of tyre management in these. You can't change them easily, or cost time. So you've got to look after. What you really need is a very careful opening stint. That's what you want, or a driver that's gentle, kind, considerate on those tyres, and get that first in. It's almost as we say when we do qualifying, Joe, we often say about a banker lap. Get that lap in. It's almost the first hour of the race. Get a banker hour in, get it sorted, wherever your position is, and then you can start to work out a bit of strategy or whatever. But
Well, we're way beyond
That'll look out the window now, won't it?
Well, we're way beyond the window of bringing the tyres in very gently. We're coming up to, we're zooming up to half distance in this 180 minute, this 3-hour race. We're on 92 minutes, just over 92 minutes remaining. That's a Premiership football game time, isn't it? Tim Harvey still leads.
Don't know, wrong shaped ball. Don't know anything about the timings on that.
Just under 28 seconds is the gap before we then come across Andrew Jordan. They are the only two cars now on the lead lap. The first car just behind Jordan on the road, but a lap down, is the Little John and Evans Lotus Elan, car 75. They are currently in third spot. Then we've got the number 88, which is the Richard Kent Chris Ward Jaguar E-Type. They are about 5, let's call that 6 seconds behind in fourth spot. Then a further 35 seconds for the number 8 Max Girardo and James Cottingham in the Lister Jaguar Costin to give it its full title. And then a further, what have we got? Now then we go to the Cottingham, Bryant and Stanley car, a further 18 seconds behind that. So then we've got, I think we've got the Haddon and Sean Lynn Lotus Elan S1 in sixth spot, but I'm thinking that car is a further lap down. So we'll that again when I get the timing screens updating themselves. Welcome back, Alistair. He's going to be joining Peter Snowden now for the next 30 minutes or so while I dive into the pits myself. So Alistair, no change there while you went away for your break. We've still got Tim Harvey, and if anything, that gap now out, it was a couple of laps ago 27 seconds, it's now just under 30.
Well, in my half-hour break, it's gone from about 12 to 30, so yeah, sort of doubled really. Thanks, Joe. And Tim Harvey continues to do what he does best, which is just drive the car at a consistent pace. 1 minute 21 was his last lap time, just consistently in that around that order.
Now, Alistair, I've got to say, you're fresh from your pit stop, you're back in the commentary booth, and you've just done the thing that we mustn't do, the curse of the commentator, saying Tim Harvey's doing what he does best, leading the race. It's only half distance, mate. Don't do it yet. Don't jinx it. You know what happens? As soon as you start talking about him, that's when something's going to happen. So let's hope it stays there. But as Joe just said to you at the handover point, what a gap now. We're talking, what are we talking, 30
seconds
30
now,
seconds,
yeah.
and it's just eking out all the time. And that's... some of that will be traffic management, obviously we're finding the way through. Tim will be a master at that. But you know, 3-hour race, don't forget this guy Tim Harvey's done, how many Le Mans has he done? Probably half a dozen, I bet, in his day, Group C cars. We talk about him, we say that he's a British touring car champion, which is relatively sprint races, and a Porsche Carrera Cup champion, which again are relatively short. But we forget that he was an endurance man as well, and drove some of the famous Group C cars, the Spices and stuff, and Chris Hodgetts, that era. So he's used to finding his way through traffic, and this won't be any surprise to him as well. He's just, I'm sure he's just sitting there thinking about the trophy and cake, isn't he? Most people think trophies and champagne. He's thinking about trophy and cake. I'm sure he is. There is a reason we mention this so much, that Mr. Harvey does like his cake, and he's openly admitted. So we're not being rude or malicious, maligning him. He does like a little bit of cake.
Well, we've still got in the region of 36 cars running, and so. Talking about traffic management, very much so, because with 36 cars on track, you're always, and you're in the quickest car on the track, of course, you're always going to be meeting slower cars. So it's the Harvey Roger Wills owned car, and Roger Wills started, and we assume will take over for the final stint in the leading car, number 24, the Lotus 15, and then it's Roy Alderslade, who had this car built very recently by the Jordan Racing team, and Andrew Jordan at the wheel.
Yeah, he's done a fair old stint in that car, hasn't he, Tim Harvey? But as Joe and I were just talking about a few minutes ago, it's not. I'm not suggesting I did say that he was having a drive in the park on a Sunday afternoon, which is a little bit unkind. Just as we say that, the race leader is into the pits. I just spotted in the background there that we've got Tim Harvey into the pits, our race leader, with a very comfortable 30 second lead over the number 17 car, so that's the Alderslade Jordan car. So Tim Harvey is into the pits, and is there going to be a driver change? It might just be a sake of fuel, but
Roger Wills there.
Roger Wills is in the garage. Obviously, he'll be staying in the garage while they refuel the car. Yes, Tim Harvey is indeed getting out of the car. So Tim Harvey, the race leader, vacates the number 24 Lotus 15. That car will refueled. No work allowed to take place on the car or driver change whilst the car is refueled. So they need to get out of it first. So they open the rear deck, as it were, on that little cover on it, and they'll refuel the car. Obviously, you've probably seen this before, and I'm sure you talked about it already, Alistair, but fire extinguishers and whatever they are just checking the oil level. You're allowed to check levels, you're not allowed to work on the car. So basically you can check an oil level, you just can't fill it with oil if it needs it at the time. So it's a kind of a safety thing for the engine there, obviously, in that car. So tanks of fuel, dump tanks of fuel going in. And that's why we keep all the pit personnel as we can behind the safety line in the pits whilst that's being done.
And Roger Wills actually manning the fire extinguisher there, because he's got the full face helmet and full fireproofs on, which is required for the appointed fire person to just make sure that if there is a spill of fuel and a little bit of flame, that they're there with a little extinguisher. You can see the larger extinguisher on the ground and the smaller one in his hand.
But perfect logical management of staff to do that, because it designates, you say, a designated team member's got to be able to do that, so why not make an incoming driver do that? Because at the same time he can talk to mechanics and crew, but he is manning, he's there for a reason. Then he's got a dual role, he'll definitely become the driver and hop into the car he owns. So this should change the order slightly, shouldn't it? We should get Andrew Jordan will come through in a minute and take the lead. Indeed, exactly on cue.
Absolutely,
he has indeed done that. So Andrew Jordan is now the new race leader, but of course that owes us a pit stop as well. So our race leader, Tim Harvey, with Roger Wills' Lotus 15, is the first car to take the second pit stop. So this is when it all starts to get very interesting, Alistair, because we'll all start to shake out. We have got the Andrew Haddon and Sean Lynn Lotus Elan, number 6 from 7th place. That's into the pits as well. That's taking its second pit stop. And some of the cars a bit further down the order as well. Jones Barry Lotus Elan, number 84, 11th. And indeed the Chili's Junior and Shelby Cobra above it in 11th. So that's the 11th car. The Jones Barry car is 12th. My apologies. They've taken their second pit stop. So really we need to see what happens now. How soon is Andrew Jordan going to bring what is now the race leading car? We've got number 66 on the list, is just having a little spin there coming off that.
That's Ben Mitchell.
Ben Mitchell
driving that. Yeah, it's
most unlike him.
Very much, yeah. So the Niall McFadden car, the Lister Nobly.
And that was it into McLean's. It looked like it had just swapped end. We just saw it rejoining, didn't we, Alistair? But it looked like it had just swapped ends. So you'd almost imply, if it's not oil, which we had earlier and had such consequences for so many people, almost like it's just probably just caught a gear or something, just swapped ends there, but it looked like it was rejoining.
And the C-Type comes in, number 20, parks itself for its second pit stop right in front of the 24 car, which Roger Wills is now strapping himself into. And he will. There's Tim Harvey come out again. Look, is that no? That's actually the C-Type co-driver, isn't it? Thought that was Tim Harvey coming out to have a chat with Roger. But Roger Wills has been strapped into the number 24 car. The team still looking around the back. The refueling will have been completed now, but they're still checking the levels and making sure that the car is okay for the final stint of the race. It's showing as 4th now in the order, but of course we're now into the second pit stop phase, so we need to wait for these to unwind. Here's the number 60 E-Type Jaguar in the Cunningham colours that Andrew mentioned earlier.
The big thing to remember on this, Alistair, it's a mandatory pit stop is 300 seconds, isn't it? 5 minutes.
5 minutes, yeah.
So there's 5 minutes. So there is no rush. There is no need to rush and fumble. It's not like Formula One or the other endurance racing that we cover, where they literally you have to go and do it as quickly as possible. They've got 5 minutes. And actually 5 minutes in a pit stop is a remarkably long amount of time, Alistair. The only concern is when you get something like this, it starts to getting full, the pits, as we can see looking down in the pit lane on our camera shot now. We can't see what was the race leading car, because it has got a Porsche right behind it, but there's people starting to block, and that's when you can't get out of the pits. And when your 5 minutes is up, you might have 5 minutes, but you don't want 5 minutes any longer. You want to be out there.
That's certainly going on at the moment, and a little bit of news we think might be a change, not change, but perhaps a driver not taking a stint in the number 60 car, which we were following earlier on because it was well up the order. and that's the Hancock Fiskin Blakeney Edwards car. We're questioning whether Patrick Blakeney Edwards will take the wheel. We'll find out later on, but the chat was that it would be just Sam Hancock and Gregor Fiskin in that car, and the number 11 car that Patrick Blakeney Edwards was sharing with Fred Wakeman is out of the race. We saw that earlier being towed off the grass. Here we see the number 1 car, which is the James Cottingham, Harvey Stanley, Oliver Bryant car. Now there's Roger Wills back out on track again. So the owner of the car now back behind the wheel, having taken over from a sterling stint from Tim Harvey in the number 24 Lotus 15, and that's back now in the hands with New Zealander Roger Wills, a very experienced historic racing driver. And of course his first stint was very impressive indeed and left Tim with a bit of work to do, but he got it into the lead. We're looking again at the pit lane, lots of activity there. It's great to see. There's the C-Type Jaguar with its front wheels off the ground on the jacks. I think they may even have changed those wheels because we can see them. Yes, there's a wheel coming off. Now, is that perhaps them adjusting the brakes again? It looks like it is.
It is. It's the second time they've had to do that on the Gary Pearson C-Type, so it is on drum brakes, unlike most of the cars here. Roger Wills has left the pits and indeed out on track as we see now, so that's our erstwhile race leader. I say that because he has had on his pits. We've got another one of the E-Types that's spun again. That's
the 144
car.
That's Paul Posciol, George Posciol and James Hanson. Don't know actually who's on driving that car in this stint, but that's a spin down at the old hairpin, wasn't it? Yeah, we've seen a few cars spinning onto the infield there. Anyway, it's underway again. Just a momentary spin. And drifting through McLean's, the 144, the very traditional shape of E-Type, the fixed head car, as a whole bunch of cars comes down into Redgate with the number 8, Max Girardo, James Cottingham, James driving number 1 and number 8. That's the Lister Jaguar Costin.
Our race leader, the Jordan-driven Shelby Daytona, has gone past the pit entrance on this occasion, so it's going to complete at least this lap. We are going to keep an eye on that car, Alistair and I, just for you to inform when that car comes in and see what happens. At the moment it's the Shelby Daytona Cobra of Andrew Jordan that currently leads, car number 17, the Kent and Ward Jaguar E-Type in second place. Little Johns and Evans Lotus Elan 26R is third place, rounding out the podium, so to speak. Max Girardo and James Cottingham in the listed Jaguar Costin in fourth. Another Cottingham, Bryant and Stanley, that's Ollie Bryant and Harvey Stanley in another Jaguar E-Type in fifth place, and the Miles Wright Coyne Ford Mustang. Dave Coyne, we saw him out in the Sierra Cosworth a little bit earlier on in the touring car race, and doing very impressive there. Still a hive of activity down in the pit lane. We are just over, say, mid-distance. We're just under 1 minute 20 of this race left to run, so a substantial amount of the race to go still, and you know, we're effectively talking virtually a Grand Prix to go normally, if talking in terms of what people do tend to think of Formula One is the only type of motorsport. Well, there's lots of other stuff, and there's racing cars with doors and roofs that are quite incredible. The Cobra going round again for another lap, and I was just looking that there's a little, almost as if there's a bit of something on the driver's door there. It doesn't. I just want to see a little bit. I think it might just be a little bit. Oh no, it's a bit of Perspex where it's got side deflectors on the winds on the A pillar there. So just looking slightly odd. I wonder what was going on there. But it sustained that damage earlier on in the race when you were covering that bit then as well, Alistair. I mean, we're still not really sure which car dropped the oil that caused so many cars to go off, and there's been a lot of collateral damage from that oil, unfortunately. Can't be helped. It's one of those things. It's racing.
The Austin Healey having to take avoiding action there as the leading car, the number 17 Cobra Coupe, just slides through on the inside of the old hairpin. We've got number 74 coming out of the pits. This is the Chris Charles Jr. car, the Shelby Cobra, the more traditional shaped car rather than the Daytona Cobra Coupe shape. And off he goes down through Hollywood, rumbling away there, the big V8 Ford engine. And
just noticed that car went down through. Well, it's got a broken Perspex rear window there as well, just a little bit. So that just, I've had that experience before with these cars. It can actually let a lot of fumes in as well. So you've got to be a little bit careful of that one.
And through the chicane there, past the pit entry, leading that group is the 184 E-Type, Reed Gom and Andrew Keith Lucas in the low drag. And there's the 72, one of our American muscle cars, the Shelby Mustang, Nick Sleep, Alex Montgomery and Joel Wickham. 72 car, that's actually running in 11th place, just behind the Hancock Fiskin 60 E-Type. And here comes the leading car, number 17, with all that damage it sustained much earlier on. But the word from Mike Jordan, when Duncan had a chat with him earlier on about that car, he said actually mechanically it's fine, it's just cosmetic damage, so we're not too worried. It'll keep going. There's nothing damaged underneath. Just unfortunate that it brand new car built by Jordan Racing Team just looks a bit of a mess at the moment after that incident.
I'm sure it'll be repaired very soon. Its last lap was a 1:23, so it's 3 seconds off its best pace. That just might be a reflection of traffic and nothing more. It's certainly anything to do with the car, let alone Andy Jordan's pace in that car. He certainly seems to be pressing on. But Andrew Jordan, again, a consummate professional. As we said before, you don't get to be touring car champion for nothing. It's in one of the most frenetic and hard-fought series, arguably I'd say, in the world, never mind in the UK. And he has won that championship back in 2013 and multiple races before and since. And he will be absolutely taking his time through the traffic there, so that's possibly why that time's dropped down a little bit for 1:23. I'm sure it's not utterly reflective of what the car can do.
And the 44 car on screen there is the George Shalgren Jeremy Cook Mustang, the 4.7 litre Ford V8 engine in the front of that, a very similar sort of family of engines that's used in a lot of these cars, as it's being passed on the inside by the car we think that after all the pit stops have unwound might well drop back into the lead, and that's Roger Wills in the little Lotus 15 with the 2 litre engine, and it slides up the inside of another Lotus, that's the Lotus Elan, just lapping it there as it goes into the chicane. But there's the George Shalgren Mustang, number 44, with Jeremy Cook.
You just mentioned pit stops there, Alistair. The top 6 cars still owe us a pit stop, which is why you were just saying quite rightly that we think that's the de facto leading car. It may seem odd that it's down in 7th place at the moment, but it has led the majority of this race so far. We've got an hour and 15 minutes to go, and I suspect that we're going to start to see, as ever with the pit stops, if one starts, one follows, we might have a flurry of activity in the next 2 or 3 laps. It all depends on strategy. And what you can do. There's a maximum, isn't there, between pit stops of no more than 85 minutes, isn't it, between pit stops. So those that have done a short dash to start with, with not much fuel on to get the pace and be up at the front, you've then got to. It's all about strategy. That's what I love about endurance racing. It unfolds. You can be out at the front and have the glory early on by putting no fuel in it and a quick driver. It's great, but then there's a payback. You've got to do this thing in the middle of the race. You've got to put a ton of fuel in it, and perhaps not your fastest driver. You might have a very good team of all 3 match drivers, and that is ideal. It's great for a team manager then. But you've got to give it back at some point. And as we so often say in endurance racing, exactly what this is, a 3-hour race, that traffic it giveth and it taketh away. And that's what can happen. And so we're just waiting for those top 6 cars that still owes us those pit stops, and I'm intrigued to see which one's going to pit first. In fact, now we've got the Lister Costin. That's been in and gone, isn't it? The 4th place car. That's in the pits.
That's the Cottingham.
The Grado Cottingham. I'm looking at the one behind it. Yes.
And also we've got cars 2 and 66 in the pit lane at the moment. That's the Jaguar of Richard Mines, Chris Lillingston Price, and the Niall McFadden Ben Mitchell car, which I think we're just seeing there, aren't we? 66, yes, indeed. And also in is there's the Richard Mines, Chris Lillingston Price. So they're actually servicing the cars next to each other, and a car behind, slightly hidden from view, also just coming to the end of its refuelling stop. And we can see just very animated, that's Ben Mitchell talking probably about that spin, I would think, to Niall McFadden, the Northern Irish businessman, and I suspect that he's telling him about that quick spin he had much earlier on in the race. We just caught the end of that with the cameras, and we got Porsches together here, 2 911s, And the 59 car, coloured and the numbers rather like the Brumos Porsches in America, with the blue and red stripes, but a very early Porsche 911. And great to see those two together. That's wonderful. And coming through on the inside is Andrew Jordan in the leading car, the Shelby Daytona Cobra Coupe, which comes down the long straight, and he'll be on the brakes now for the right left of the chicane. And the Porsches are side by side. The 59 car slides through on the inside. That's
they just outbraked it, didn't they? Just dived down the inside.
Maxwell Lynn and Andrew Haddon racing with the similar 19 of Guillermo Fierro Elata, and Steve Hart.
Race leader into the pits. We just missed that on the well, we didn't miss it because the two Porsches were battling away into the chicane there, but at the same time Andrew Jordan brought the number 17 race leading Shelby Daytona into the pits, so he'll be vacating that. The door, typical Andrew Jordan, he's got out, had a quick look at the door because obviously that's been a little bit damaged. Had a quick look at that on the way out. I'm sure Mike Jordan's all over. You can see Mike Jordan down there in the pit lane, and he's got a leaf blower already straight onto literally onto the disc, cooling it down.
And yes, the mechanic the other side as well, cooling the brakes. So just trying to keep that car as cool as possible while it's stopped. A lot of heat comes out of the car and sinks into the surrounding metal, and that can cause problems when the cars go out again.
Well, that's exactly the problem. The heat soak, and what it does is it boils all the fluid in the lines nearby, and obviously boiled fluid doesn't really work very well, as in brake fluid. So the driver gets in, and off he goes, and goes at the end of the pit lane, accelerates out, and the first time he needs the brakes, there's no brakes because you've got to pump them back on again. So it's again, all these things you've got to think of, because these cars, they're working extremely hard, and as we mentioned earlier, they're big, heavy GT cars that are being stopped quite significantly, at least 3, 4, 5 times around the lap, and they've done an hour. We've got an hour and 11 minutes of this race to go, so let's see how the order shakes out. Where is that Wills Harvey Lotus? It's back up to 4th place now on the actual road. That's going to shake out a little bit because we've got the Alderslade Jordan Daytona in the pits.
So that will put the 88 car into the lead. Richard Kent and Chris Ward in the E-Type will probably take over the lead, although it was quite a way behind before they went into the pits. But with a 5-minute stop plus the in and out time, it's more than likely that they will take over the lead for a short time. There's the Roger Wills car coming through the chicane and completes another lap.
Fabulous close up there of it, and of course he's a very, very proud Kiwi, and he's got his All Blacks sort of feather on the crash helmet, so it looks like he's part of the All Blacks rugby team. I know he's a big fan of rugby as well, and as he should do, correct shaped ball, sport to follow. And I can see Joe Bradley waiting in the background to come and take his last stint in this race, just smirking there. We have this constant conversation over the years. I mean, it's been nearly 25 years now, Joe. We've been discussing this.
And the car in 3rd place, the number 1 Cottingham Bryant Stanley, a car run by DK Engineering. The Jaguar E-Type in 3rd is again some way behind, so that might just not take over at the top. But Kent and Ward do take over the lead, as I thought they would, with the Jordan Alderslade car in the pits. So for the moment,
they're in the pits for 5 minutes, of course, which is quite a long stop. Yeah, so I'd be very surprised if they're not going to take over the lead of this race again.
Yeah, and 24, the Wills and Harvey car we're following now, the Lotus 15, is fast catching everybody up because it's done its 2 pit stops now, so it's unwinding that 5 and a bit minutes that it cost them. There's the Alderslade Jordan car. We saw that come into the pits. We saw Mike Jordan and another team member with the leaf blowers just keeping the brakes cool. It looks like Roy Alderslade, the car's owner, is now on board, and we could certainly see Andrew Jordan. There he is, just pointing, holding the door open. There's Roy Alderslade. Actually, he hasn't got in, he's just getting in. Andrew is now going to just kneel down by the car and just help him do his belts up, and we're going to hear from Andrew Marriott.
Tim, absolutely absolutely fabulous stint in the Lotus 15 there, and you're out in the lead, and Roger's taking the car over. Can he hang on?
Yeah, I mean, the cars, we're really stroking it round, looking after it, and it's still keeping the gap, so that's lovely. We haven't got to work the car too hard. The only thing that could catch us out is we did our second stop under green flag, and if others can do their second stop under a safety car, then obviously they'll gain a great deal. But, if all goes well, we should get to the end in a good place.
Up in the booth, they said two things. Tim Harvey looked so fantastically smooth out there, and he also eats too much cake.
Yeah, Colin Chapman would never have employed me as a driver because I'm definitely overweight, but it's a real pleasure to drive that car, the ex-Bruce McLaren car. It's got all those lovely Lotus qualities, deftness of touch, light feeling, lots of feedback to the driver, little thin steering wheel, and it's just an absolute, you have to pinch yourself really. It's a lovely car.
Well, you're leading a race like that, Tim, and of course you've got that massive career behind you. Do you think, maybe I should never have retired?
Well, I never have retired actually. I just stopped racing sort of modern, ultra competitive, serious championships because motorsport is two words. It's the sport and the motoring side, and you don't get so much sport in the modern stuff, so it's really nice to do these sort of races.
Of course you did, five or six Le Mans. Do you think that endurance element helps in a race like that, the experience you got?
Yeah, I'm sure it helps with traffic, judgment of traffic, picking when to get a run on cars and when it's safe, all that makes a huge difference because one mistake and that's your race over with. And I must have passed with everything going on, 50, 60, 70 cars. So you have to make quick decisions, and when you've got a lot of experience, you can rely on that, I guess.
Well, Tim, great drive, and you just got to sit on the pit wall and wait, see what happens.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks very much to Tim Harvey, chatting there with Andrew Marriott down in the pit lane. Wonderful to hear from Tim. He's such a, like we heard from Mike Wilds yesterday and a number of other drivers, they're really enthusiasts at heart. They may have had a professional career in racing, some of them, but really what's inside them is a racer. And it's great. Tim was really, you read between the lines with that comment, don't you, about there's not so much fun in the racing, not so much sport in the racing these days. Oh, as the 65 Porsche got the door open there as the driver trying to hold it shut. I think that's going to be a pit caller. But we were just watching the car that Tim Harvey was driving, Roger Wills, there it is again, which is now up to third as the other pit stops start to unwind. Andrew.
Yeah, Alistair, I just come back into the box because unfortunately we can't get the camera link working. I think those great big birds we see at Donington have got in the way. But I did speak to Andrew Jordan as he got out of the Cobra and asked him, my speculation was maybe the brakes weren't so good because of maybe, Snowy said that maybe the brake ducts had been damaged or something. No, the brakes are absolutely fine. Actually, you probably can't see it so well on the screen, but there's quite a bit of damage to the side of the silencer absorbed by the exhaust system. No, the engine's working fine. He says this car is a handful. You really have to concentrate, and I am going as quick as it will go. That's as quick as it will go at the moment. Remember, this car is brand new, effectively, and Jordan's had never been. Quite a lot of people build those Cobras, but they've never built one before, and so I think they're on a bit of a learning curve. So I'm sure it will go a bit quicker than that, but it's a great effort by them anyway, and we love to see that. I love that Daytona Cobra shape. There's a few of the actual real ones around, There's one was actually still owned by Rob Walton, who is the big supermarket king of Walmart. He owns one, and also there's a guy in France owns one of the originals, who was the ATS lift company that I remember sponsored Pescarolo in many years ago. So some of the originals are about, but there we see it on screen here, and a bit beaten and battered around the edges, but still going great guns here and looking fabulous, isn't it?
I think I'm right in saying, Andrew, that there were 6 of those built.
Yes, I believe there was 6,
right, yeah. 6 originals, and we've got plenty of continuations racing now, and this is one of them, which was very recently built.
and as I say, absolutely flying. I think is Joe Bradley going to step back into the chair now, as we thank Peter Snowden for his excellent commentary and chat there, and a little bit of discussion between. We've got Joe and Peter having a bit of discussion here, like two drivers discuss when they get out of the car, you know, Alistair. But at the moment,
that'll go on for a while. Then,
couldn't it? Yes. We've got the two E-types at the front, but just looking at lap times here, and Roger Wills, well, at the moment, is about 4 seconds off Tim's best time, isn't he? But Roger Wills, very experienced driver from New Zealand, travels the world a lot. Hasn't been able to do that so much lately.
That's true. Yes.
And he's raced a lot of different cars, but this Lotus 15, great machine, and we'll see what happens. See if it comes back up to the top of the list here.
Well, we're looking at the moment at the car that is at the top of the list. That's the number 88, Kent and Ward. That's the E-Type, Richard Kent and Chris Ward. Chris Ward, an extremely experienced Jaguar driver.
Of course, he drove for that JD Classics team
right.
for a while, and then of course that collapsed, didn't it? And left his career in a bit of a situation. He was telling me yesterday. But he's got a new backer, and it's strange enough. Malden, is a famous salt from Essex. I think it must come from the Essex Flats or something. And they've got new overs. Looks absolutely immaculate, that team. So it's great that Chris Ward's got back into the swing of things with a drive like that. Just long races like this, you get things like the exhaust. You see the blackened exhaust up the side of that E-Type. It's very emotive, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Very much so. In fact, some of the teams that have run at Le Mans, they leave their cars in the dirty state as they came off the end of the race. And Porsche did that recently with the 919, where they left the car in its dirty state.
They all do. They all do.
Do they now?
Yeah, absolutely.
Days, yeah.
They never clean the cars, and they go. Porsche would go off to the Porsche Museum. Audi did the same with their Le Mans winners. They went off to a museum with exactly how they finished. I fixed Andrew's link, so.
Oh, good.
I'm going to send him back down. I got the Phillips out and had a bit of a tweak and stuff, so we're back on with Andrew in the pits.
A car that looks as fresh as a daisy, actually. Talking about dirty cars and looking great after a couple of hours racing. Actually, the number 24 car looks as clean as when it started. In the pits is the leader that took over when Wills and Harvey went in for their stop. That's the 88 car, which is currently stationary in the pits. And that's the Richard Kent and Chris Ward car, and that the 24 Lotus passed the pits, but that doesn't mean he's unlapped himself. He has unlapped himself one lap, but he's 2 laps down because of the long pit stop. So we've got a little bit of time to wait before that 24 car retakes the lead, but it looks like it's going to happen because Kent and Ward are going to have to stay in the pits for another 4 minutes or so. And we're watching here what the car behind, the 47 car, Malcolm Paul and Rick Bourne, who have raced together for many, many years, and they were racing the Lotus 10 yesterday, if you were watching our live stream yesterday. And they're together again in the TVR, the Grand Tourer TVR, which is being overtaken on the inside. Or is it? Exactly.
Or
yes,
is
I know.
it? Yeah. I mean,
just grabs a break there, but kept the E-Type at bay.
The TVR certainly can corner better. It came out of Coppice, and the E-Type. But the thing about the E-Type, what number was the E-Type there?
184.
It's tripping over the TVR because it's got more power. And that's the Reed Gom and Andrew Keith Lucas. It's certainly got the power on the straights, but the TVR, I think, is going to manage to perhaps pull away through the curves and the sweeps.
The TVR using the MGB engine, the 1800cc, so a little bit less than 2 litres less than the Jaguar, but a very light body shell made out of fiberglass, I think we called it then. I'm not sure what we call it these days, but plastic body shell. But there's an MGB, very much steel body shell in that one. Car number 14, Rob Cull, Tom Smith, Steve Winter. Now we saw that in the gravel earlier on, and I think it was
across the gravel, wasn't it?
Yeah, and you said did a good job of getting it out of the gravel. And and the number 2 E-Type of Richard Mines and Chris Lillingston Price. Now that's sitting, where is that? Scanning down, 13th is the black E-Type with the white stripe, broad white stripe, which is number 2, the semi-lightweight of Richard Mines and Chris Lillingston Price. The Porsche there, number 9, we were watching a little bit earlier on, and that's being driven by Matthew Home and Steve Winter from 1965, being chased by the 71 Triumph TR4, which is shared Alan Ross-Jones, Daniel Ross-Jones, and our very own Mark Hales, who's one of those drivers who's been around for many, many years, driven just about everything there is to drive. Don't know whether Mark's on board at the moment. It's an open face helmet. Don't recognise it, but Mark Hales, an extremely experienced driver.
We saw a short while ago the number 65 Porsche 911. I'll just mention the drivers, Mark Bates, James Bates. The door was flapping. That's been rectified with good old tank tape.
Oh, good.
Yeah, the old tank. I just hope it's colour coded.
I was about to say that.
I really hope it's not. It's not in contrast to the colour of the car. 'Cause it's one of my pet hits. Lack of preparation, I call it.
And the big car, 72, the Nick Sleep, Alex Montgomery, Joel Wickham, Shelby Mustang. Carroll Shelby, who was one of the drivers of the winning car in 1959 at Le Mans for Aston Martin, but he developed these muscle car Fords, and this is the Shelby Mustang. He was, of course, also absolutely linked with the Shelby Daytona Cobra as DD300. That's a very famous registration number. Doing a little bit of grass tracking there, but coming back onto the track, must have just gone wide.
That's across from the crane of curves.
It is
probably the safest approach once you've gone on there.
Yeah.
Not sort of turning sharp left and rejoining the track at the crane of curves, continuing across the grass, and came on just on the exit of the old hairpin and out of harm's way. You said it was a famous. There's the lead. There's the lead. The 24 Lotus 15 now has regained the lead. It's got those laps back. Whilst the number 88 was in the pits, the number 88 remains in the pits, so the lead being extended all this while. We'll keep an eye on the pit lane just to see when the 88 E-Type does resume from its pit stop, and the number 24 now continues. That's Lotus 15. Roger Wills now at the wheel of the car, and
that
you
has
mentioned
gone back into the lead now.
It's gone back into the lead. Yeah, just explain that. Yeah,
sorry,
you mentioned the registration number of that car.
DD300.
On the grass. Yeah, what's the?
Yeah, well, that was an ex-works car that raced for many, many years in the hands of John Chatham in club racing and some international racing as well, and it was hugely successful and is amongst the most famous registration numbers in Austin Healey's world.
Right.
Just one of those numbers, and it's the original car, so it's got provenance. We're not talking here about a continuation or a recreation
that's
car.
The actual car.
That's the actual car. And this is the actual car, and didn't Tim Harvey refer to it?
That.
Bruce McLaren drove, and it's very much an original car that Roger Wills owns. And that's why Roger is so proud of owning and racing this car, because his fellow New Zealander Bruce McLaren.
And you know, I thought I saw a spinner there at Coppice on the entrance to Coppice. We'll try and get an ID on that. But that the responsibility, Andrew and I bumped into Tim Harvey early this morning in the paddock, and he was telling us about driving that car, how it's the Bruce McLaren car, and quite a responsibility really for Tim and Roger, of course, to drive that car. And you would not think that the car had such provenance the way Tim was driving it. He was driving it with great gusto, wasn't he? Sliding the car through the corners. But it reminded me of a story here at Donington Park during an Aston Martin Owners Club race. We had Peter Hardman in the the Aston Martin DBR1. The Le Mans winner. And the car was priceless. You literally couldn't put a cost on the car. And from the tower, we could see Peter Hardman fully broadside, in exactly the same angle, using all of the curb on the exit, kicking up the dust, lap after lap after lap. And he came into the pit lane, and where I did the winner's interview, and I said to him, Peter, how can you possibly drive this car on the limit like you did, on the very edge of the car's adhesion, when you know it's a priceless car? And he gave me this answer that is just the epitome of what we've kind of seen here at the Donington Historic Festival. He said it would have been offensive to the people who built and created this car not to continue and use it in the way that it was intended. Rather than put it in a museum, we're going to race it, and we're going to race it on the very edge and on the limit. And if we crash it, we'll repair it and we'll take it racing again. And I just thought, that is the perfect attitude, and that's exactly the attitude that we're seeing from that leading Lotus 15 from both Roger Wills and Tim Harvey at the wheel.
Indeed, yes, and it's now, as we mentioned a couple of laps ago, gone back into the lead. But what's also happened is that the Roy Alderslade Andrew Jordan Daytona Cobra Coupe, which was in the pits, is back out. That's gone back into second place, and the gap between them is 52, nearly 53 seconds. And then in third place at the moment, but owing us a pit stop, is the Shelby Mustang we were watching a couple of laps ago on screen, which is the sleek Montgomery Wickham car. And then it's the number 60 Hancock Fiskin, possibly Blakeney Edwards, although question marks over whether Patrick will race in this car. Number 60 in fourth place, and then the number 88, which we've been following on and off with the 24 as well on screen, and that's the John Kent Chris Ward car, which is now in fifth place. But that has done its two stops, and the two ahead have not. So we've still got some shuffling in the pack yet. But I think the shuffle is very much, the aces are held by Roger Wills and Tim Harvey, who are in the lead at this point and pulling away, because the last lap was 1.7 seconds quicker for Roger Wills than Roy Alderslade.
I think we're at that stage where the cars first and second have taken their second and final pit stops, so that's kind of settled. Behind them, though, there's a little bit of uncertainty as to where exactly who's owing us a pit stop still. So behind the first two, I think it's a run to the flag for the first two, and then we're still waiting for things to settle down. We've got a slippery surface flag being shown at Redgate, and a lot of sawing at the wheel and a bit of sideways. I'm not sure whether, is it raining? It's not exactly oil down, it's just maybe a little bit of spit. That's altering the track surface. So information certainly from our colleagues who've just poked their head outside for some fresh air, and there's a little bit of precipitation in the air. We've been lucky so far here at the Donington Historic Festival with the weather. It's been a beautiful day. Temperature's very, very pleasant. Perfect day of racing, and we've had some fantastic pictures from our TV production crew at Race Television. I must admit, it's my first time working with Race Television, and I've got to say, we've got this telepathy going on. They seem to know what we want to talk about next, Alistair, and we've had some great pictures, and just sort of capturing the ambience of the day, of the weekend, with some great shots.
The only thing you could improve is a crowd of spectators on this beautiful Donington grass banking at the back there.
Right?
As the camera pans around, you've got all the people, which just adds that little bit of flavour to the event. But as for on-track action, it's been absolutely stunning, and we've got 49 and 3/4 minutes to go in this final race of the weekend, and still leading is the Roger Wills Tim Harvey Lotus 15. It's 1 minute and 1 second pretty much now a lead over Roy Alderslade, who's in his new Shelby Daytona Cobra Coupe.
We've got a slow moving Mustang, it's car 72. We've got a bit of smoke coming from that exhaust, I think. The 72 of Nick Sleep, Alex Montgomery, Joel Wickham into the pits. And he's whatever it is, it's never good when we see smoke at the rear of a car. And I'm not sure where that manifested on the track, but he was very close to the pits, and he brings that car in now.
And
that car was quite up there, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Seventh spot, actually, in from seventh. And that car now showing 2 pit stops, so that was one of the cars that owed us.
It was running third, but it was owing us a pit stop. So it wasn't,
it was third.
Yes, a net third, but now it's effectively doing its second stop, but unfortunately it's not for the reasons that they want. It's
and it was going slowly on that straight,
yeah,
wasn't it? It was
definitely.
very slow.
Yeah. Here's a bit. How many cars can you fit on across the Donington Park track? The answer is about 4. And this is on the run out. Here they come now, all 4 of them still tied together. This is one of the Costin-bodied listers, Frank Costin, the aerodynamicist, the much more slippery shape. There's the knobbly, similar car, but underneath the chassis, the engine, but that's the knobbly lister, which has a completely different body shape.
And the Frank Costin car showing smoother, flatter lines, the knobbly showing more curves where perhaps in complete contrast to the Frank Costin car that has a sort of a flatter front. Getting the air across the car and out the back was all very important at this period. We hadn't quite discovered downforce created by wings and the like, so it was all about making the cars travel as quickly as possible through the air, and we certainly see that with that number 8 and indeed the number 88.
And we can see from the pictures that Mustang is parked below our box. We can't actually see it because we haven't got a window out that way, but I can smell.
Can you smell that?
I can smell what I think is gearbox or diff oil smell. So that smoke was probably gearbox or diff, and we can actually smell it in our box.
Can you smell the difference between gearbox oil and engine oil then?
Yes.
Yeah. So I've got no
it's
sense of
completely
smell.
different. I've also got a message from Duncan, who's been helping us, as I mentioned. He's down in the pit lane, just wandering around, feeding Andrew with information as well, and he's telling us that the number 60 car, now that was a car we were watching earlier on, that's in the pits. Reason is it's lost its fan belt. So they may be able to get one fitted, or it may have done some damage to the engine, but let's hope not. That's the Hancock Fiskin number 60 E-Type, which we focused on a bit earlier on, especially when Andrew was talking to Gregor Fiskin and then Sam Hancock, who got out of the car.
And of course, gone are the days where you find the First Lady wearing nylon stockings. And the quick fix for the van belt back in the 60s and early 70s was some nylon stockings wrapped around the pulleys. I'm not sure that's how they'll want to fix that one. That's not a quick fix though. The number 60 is still showing in the pits.
So we've got the car that was on screen there, the Alderslade car with the dented front, to the number 17 car in second place, losing ground to the leader. And we see there again the E-Type number 144, which I think was entered as a C-Type, but obviously Paul Posciol, who owns this car, just changed to one of his other cars. We've had a quick shot there of DD300 again. That's the green Healy, which has period Le Mans history. It actually raced in the great 24-hour race when it was part of the factory team, and here it is out on track, driven very well indeed. It's coming down the long straight. We've got an E-Type, we've got a Lotus Elan just behind, squirreling around under braking. How would any Lotus Elan be driven differently to that? Absolutely on the limit. Then an MGB just slightly overrunning the track there, just having to take a little bit of extra track. And then the Costin-bodied Lister comes through. Lights ablaze on number 74, which is the Chris Charles Jr. and Senior Shelby Cobra, making its way through past one of the other Healys. And behind that, the number 8 Max Gerardo James Cottingham car, which is running, that car on screen now is running in 4th place.
And I noticed just behind that,
done its 2 stops.
Alistair, there is the 88 on track, on road. And so the 88, it was actually ahead of that number 8 on the road. That's in 3rd, the number 8's in 4th. So the 88's about to come round and lap the number 8, from what I can gather.
Yes, they're a lap apart at the moment. So we're 44 minutes from the end of the race, and there's still some racing to do. I think certainly, as Tim Harvey said to Andrew earlier, if everything goes okay and they don't get a safety car where everybody closes up and manages to do, although all the pit stops have been done now, so it's a run to the flag for them, but there's lots of racing going on behind them.
It's been a while since I've heard from Andrew Marriott. Let's head down to the pits where Andrew has someone to talk to.
From its pit stop. Andrew, I think the best way to describe that, you were wrestling the car around Donington Park.
Yeah, that was a hard stint. I think it was about an hour and 20 minutes, and we wouldn't want to do much longer in it. Certainly on full fuel tank, it was quite hard. So you get a feeling from the car, and that was the pace the car wanted to go. So she's been in the wars with the oil that went down. Roy had a bit of contact with some cars and with the on the oil, so she's looking a bit sorry, but still driving all straight, braking straight. So oil temp was a little bit high, so I've just told him to bring some revs off it because that made a big difference when I was out. So yeah, so far so good.
When it came in, we did see the team jack it up and have a look underneath there, just a visual inspection.
Yeah, we put a pair of left tyres on it, which was the plan. The plan was initially to do a pair of lefts in each stop, but obviously Roy only did a short first stint because of the safety car. So we put him 2 left tyres on to give him a bit more grip, a bit more fuel, and told him to go and have some fun.
You've done a lot of different racing cars in your time, but the Daytona Cobra is completely new to you. I take my hat off to the team building that car up.
It's great, you know. It's a long old race for these cars, 3 hours, you know, and yes, we're driving at a bit of a pace, but the cars are still having a very hard time. So yeah, it's great that we've had the car on pole and we're right up there in contention. So yeah, if Roy can go away happy of his first experience in the Daytona today, I'll be very happy.
Yeah, because he hasn't got much experience at all, has he?
He's very new to racing. He's done a couple of years in Ginettas and kind of got the historic bug with a Lotus Cortina with us, and yeah, got the bug, wanted a Daytona building, which we've done, which we'd wanted to build one for years, and yeah, the opportunity came. It's actually during lockdown. Roy rang me and said, I think I fancy a Daytona Cobra being built, so I was all over that, obviously. So yeah, it's looking a bit beat up, but we'll hopefully it keeps going and we get to the end.
Well, you put a lot of smiles on a lot of people's faces today. Thanks very much, Andrew, and we'll keep our fingers crossed it makes it to the finish.
Thanks, Andrew. Thank you very much. Cheers.
Now then, my question is, are they going to actually take that car to Daytona for the Classic? Because that's its home, isn't it? That's where it should be at. So I'm sure Andrew and Mike will be putting that to the car zone, and I'm sure that's a box to be ticked. Why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you? Daytona Classic coming up end of October actually this year. It's a little bit earlier than normal, and you never know, we might be able to get there. Fingers crossed. 41 minutes remaining, so we are at that point that we thought we might be at this stage, Alistair, with everyone showing on the timing screens that they've served their 2 mandatory stops, and now we're in a run to the flag. Not much of a race at the front, so to speak, with that huge gap remaining between the leading number 24 Lotus 15 and the the Jordan and Alderslade Shelby Daytona Cobra in second. I'm not sure what the gap is. It's about a minute last time I looked.
Yeah, and I think we've certainly got a battle for the bottom step of the podium, if not the second step. It just depends on how well Roy Alderslade, who Andrew Jordan has just explained, he's very new to racing. He's done a couple of years in Ginettas, which I've commentated on because that series supports British GT. So we've seen Roy out racing, and he's a real enthusiast, and he's really got the bug, as Andrew put it, and had this Lotus Cortina built and now the Daytona Cobra Coupe. But how well can he keep going to the end of the race? It's a long way to go. It's a tough car to drive. It's probably quite hot in there as well. And then we've got the 88 Kent and Richard Kent Chris Ward car, and also Max Girardo in the number 8 sharing with James Cottingham, and they are going very quickly indeed. And will they have time? It's a long way, 39 minutes to go, so we'll keep an eye on that. That might be a battle for...
Gap's just ticked over there, Alistair, 54 seconds.
Right.
That battle for 3rd and 4th.
Yeah, so it's quite a long way. They're running similar pace, but the car behind is slightly quicker, which is always nice to see. So that's catching. The gap is closing, can they? And they're both much quicker than, well, say much quicker, a couple of seconds a lap quicker than Roy Alderslade. So is there time for them to trouble the second step of the podium, perhaps? as we watch the 74 Cobra, I think, coming down the hill. Yes, the 74 car. That's in 8th place. That's the Childs and Childs car, senior and junior. And we're going to hand back to Andrew in the pit lane.
Okay, well, we've been talking a lot about the lovely little Lotus Elan, the 26R. Cliff Gray's one of the men that's been in that car. You own the machine, I think, Cliff?
No, it's actually owned by a friend of mine, Stephen Bond, so he's out there at the moment. But I've got the privilege of sharing it with him when we do events like this. It's an absolute delight.
Always a beautiful little car. Remember in the day when run by Ian Walker Racing and so on. I don't know if your history goes that far back.
Well, I go far back. I don't remember him personally, but I know the stories. Absolutely, it's wonderful, and there's some great drivers out in there. You know, really superb drivers out there in them.
You had a pretty good run yourself.
I was really pleased actually. I was just trying to get, at the same times, nice and smooth, respect the car, get into a routine. I had an 85-minute stint, so I knew I just had to keep doing the same thing without overexerting myself or the car.
Well, the car's run by, obviously, In Racing, or I'm never sure if it's IN Racing or In Racing, that's all family.
It's Ian and obviously Will. They do a fantastic job. They run a Cooper that I race as well with a friend of mine, Seb. They do a marvellous job in preparing the car. Will's not a bad peddler himself, as you probably know.
A couple of wins.
We're not going to let him in the car because he'll show us up, that's why.
They give you everything, because we just saw them giving you a massage.
Well, that's Seb, who actually looks after me, and he's a physiotherapist, and he does all this Reiki stuff. It's a marvellous service they provide.
I think I probably need it after 3 hours down this pit lane. Thanks so much.
Thank you very much indeed. Have a great day. Thanks very much indeed. Thank you.
Staying with news from Lotus Elan World, the number 75, the Little John and Evans car that was in 5th spot into the pits and looking like a retirement, is the information now we're receiving. Broken rear wishbone has put that car out of this race by all accounts, and that car has already lost 2 spots whilst it's being in the pits. So that was the car behind the Gerardo Cottingham car on the road, and we were just mentioning that, Alistair, there, and as we were talking there to Andrew, that car into the pits with a problem, and it looks like a broken suspension wishbone at the rear of the car is going to put that car out.
Just 1 or 2. We've had the fan belt go, we've smelt the oil. It's just 1 or 2 problems creeping in. Not surprisingly, old cars, long race. But I do notice James Cottingham is now 4th and 5th.
Yeah, I know. It's going to be interesting if he gets 2nd and 3rd. Stands astride the steps.
Well, it's one less interview for Andrew.
I suppose it's going to be a lopsided podium. Right now, we haven't got that issue with him being 4th and 5th. Still time yet, though. There's still. I mean, when we get to a 3-hour race, and this is, of course, for the Royal Automobile Club Pall Mall Cup. When we get to 35 minutes to go, we kind of, complacency starts to come in, and we think we've got the result that we can see. Right now it's not. 35 minutes, like you've just said, this is when the cars are tired. Snowy mentioned earlier about tyre wear and how the cars have been used, and remember, there's no paddle shifts out there. They're all manual gearboxes with, the dexterity of a ballet dancer, with heeling and towing and revving the engine down the box and changing up and down the box. It's all a completely different game to modern day contemporary racing, where the computer does the work for you. And tiredness, of course.
Yeah, I think that's certainly the case in some of the smaller coupe type cars, like the C-Type there. But you can see the window down on the Mustang just to keep the airflow going. But these cars get awfully hot inside, and I know the Daytona Cobra Coupes do get hot in the cabin, and that can, to drivers who are not the fit professionals that we see sometimes on the television, it is certainly a very good point, tiredness, and also the brakes as well. And perfect timing from our producer, because that car is running on drum brakes. We've seen them being adjusted twice now in this race by the Pearson team. And drum brakes are far less efficient than the modern cars with disc brakes. They're less easy to cool, and the car is really, towards the end of a race, they're really going to be struggling. And in fact, we saw a car here yesterday doing the demonstration. It was a C-type like that, but it was the first car to have disc brakes fitted, and Sterling Moss it was who said, you need to put these new types of brakes on this car, and of course the rest is history, as they say.
And the brake performance across the axle can be so different with a drum brake, whereas disc brakes, you tend to get the same efficiency of the slowing the rotation of the wheel. Whereas drum brakes, you can end up with a very unstable car, and that can be very, very tricky. 71 is a car that I believe was owned by Pete Foster at one time. I think that's the car, the TR4.
Certainly the same car as he's raced. I don't know whether it's the same car.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Snowy might be able to tell us.
It's
that one. Alan Ross Jones, Daniel Ross Jones, and Mark Hills. That's the one with Mark Hills. Not sure who that is. It's an open face helmet. Thought we might be able to recognise him there.
In terms of what's going on in the 2nd, 3rd, 4th and 5th places, which we're closely watching, it's still true to say that the lap times of the Kent and Ward E-Type number 88, which has some white car with the damage at the front, and the number 8 Gerardo Cottingham car, they're both lapping in very, very similar times, 1:21.7, 1:21.8, and they're 50 odd seconds apart, so that probably isn't going to change in terms of their positions, but they're lapping 3 seconds a lap quicker than Roy Alderslade, certainly on the last lap anyway. Roy's been around about the 23.5, 24.5 mark for a few laps now, so depending on how far apart those cars are, it could be that second place could come under threat.
We are going to try to pick up the number 88 and get an idea of track position. There's the leader just going through McLean's there. Roger Wills now at the wheel of the 24. The second place car, the Alderslade driven Shelby Daytona Cobra, and we get the tracker up. We're looking for 88, and there it is, just going through the Craner curves, and now we are with the 88 there, just going through the Craner curves. Now the car that is catching it is the number 8, and it's a lap down, we believe, so it may be just ahead of it. Trying to just pick it up on the tracker. We've got some great pictures of that car. A little bit of front end damage, as we've seen, and not sure where that plastic cone has come from. Cars just flashing past the exit of the pit lane exit.
I think using I think we call it the snake, don't we, or something, where
tracker.
The tracker, yeah, that's it, where we can see all the car numbers going around the track, which is used on television coverage sometimes. We have access to it up here, and I can see that the 88 car, which we've been following, we can see it's about to cross the line and complete another lap. And I think, if I read this correctly, it's now on the same lap as Roy Alderslade, which is car number 17, and I can tell you that Alderslade is coming down the long straight to the chicane, and the 88 car is coming into, as we can see on our television screens, coming into Hollywood. So it's just over half a lap, but the difference in lap times between them is in the region of, it was a second on the last lap, but it has been as high as 4 seconds.
Right, there's the gap, 55 seconds I think it is.
So, and with just about half an hour exactly to go, so there is time for this gap to close, isn't there? But it depends on how consistent the 88 car can be.
Yeah, let's see, it's 55 seconds across the line. The number 17 car has just gone through. Then we look for the 88. There's the number 8 behind them, a further 51 seconds behind. There's the 17.
Just coming out of the old hairpin.
And heading through Schwantz Curve up towards McLean's. It's a car that's also sporting quite a bit of damage. Last time through, 1 minute 26.9. Welcome along to our live stream. We've got some people watching, we know that. Please feel free as we get towards the finish. Please tweet and let us know how you've enjoyed this year's Donington Historic Festival. We would have much preferred to have you here trackside, as Alistair mentioned.
5 second gap between 5 seconds quicker that last lap.
50 seconds is the gap now.
This is we could see this building up quite a long time ago, with Roy Alderslade, who will quite freely admit he's not as fast as Andrew Jordan. He's only just started racing.
There's not many people are, in fairness.
No, that's true. But I thought the interview with Andrew Jordan was very interesting that Andrew did, because you could see there Andrew Jordan, totally professional. He's not there to try and win the race in this car. He wants Roy Alderslade to enjoy his racing. He's the customer, he's paid for the car to be built. Totally professional from Andrew Jordan there. So Roy Alderslade it is who's doing his best to stay ahead of the car we're looking at now, the 88 E-Type, which is coming down into the chicane. Roy Alderslade at the moment is over at Schwantz Curve, so we're now they're kind of looking across the track at each other now, with one on the high side of the track, the 88 car. There's the Roy Alderslade car coming along towards the highest point of the circuit at Coppice Corner. Got a couple of elans to get by.
Let's have a look at what the stopwatch said. The stopwatch said 48 seconds, so a further just under 3 seconds there was taken out of that, almost 3 seconds, 2.9 seconds taken out of that gap. With 27 minutes remaining, I'm not sure whether we're going to have time. I think, you know what, people our age will understand what I mean when I say a grandstand finish. That Saturday afternoon sports show, we may be about to have a grandstand finish for that second and third place. There's the 88 there. He's chasing down the number 17. Jaguar E-Type, white coloured, blue roof, bit of frontal damage. This is the car we talked about earlier, showing signs of this length of race. You really see the sort of battle scars that a car picks up in an endurance race like this. And the exhaust, the black stain from the exhaust showing on the left-hand side of the car. Is just coming out onto the pit straight to complete another lap. Let's see what the gap is this time. It was 49 seconds. It's just, let's call that 46. It's coming down, isn't it? It's coming down right here at the very end of the Donington Historic Festival. We've got a great finish coming up at the Royal Automobile Club Pall Mall Cup. Great way to finish it.
Both these cars we've been talking about showing significant damage from incidents, as far as we know, neither of which were of their own making. It was just that terrible situation with that oil slick which caused cars to spin off all over the place. So we're not looking at cars that have been thrown off the road by their drivers. And across the line once again, there goes Roy Alderslade. That's a camera shot from the pit wall, as you can see them coming down the pit straight towards Redgate. And Roy Alderslade completes another lap. That was a 1:23.7. That was a good lap from Roy Alderslade. That's going to be in the region of the time that the Kent and Ward car will do, and I think it's probably Richard Kent. That was the information we had, was that Chris Ward would do the middle stint, and then the final stint would be taken by Richard Kent. So let's assume that that's what's happened, and Richard Kent's time on this lap we'll get in a moment when he crosses the line.
And a gap between third and fourth of Richard Kent and the E-Type. Behind them they've got the Gerardo Cottingham Lister Jaguar Costin, and they're a further 54 seconds back there in fourth spot as the number 88 comes through to complete another lap. It is Kent that we have been confirmed is at the wheel. There is the 66. That's a little bit down the field. The 55 is off into the gravel with a bit of a spin. I think that's McLean's. It is indeed. Now whether he can keep the car running, he's just kind of harmlessly spun onto the outside of the circuit and he's just off track. He's not in the gravel. That's a good sign. When he gets the go ahead from the marshals, they'll give him an idea of when the traffic has gone by. Right now he's pointing in the direction he doesn't want to be in. Now the last thing he wants to do is reverse into any gravel trap, so he's trying to get a better angle
It's good thinking. He's doesn't want to turn around on the track, but that's a frightening position to be in. But
it is.
It will be covered by waved yellow flags by the marshals, so the drivers will be aware that there's an incident ahead. But he's underway again. That's the Martin Melling, Mark Burton, Graham Pattle car.
He's lost a place. He's lost at least one place, down to 14th, and he may lose more as more cars come across the line.
Gap second to third down to 42.5 seconds. Only 1.3 taken off Roy Alderslade that time. I did say Roy had done a very good lap time that last time around, but still Richard Kent was a little bit quicker.
There's the 74 of the Childs, Chris Jr. and Chris Sr. just coming across the line there. They're in 8th spot, and they are 10 seconds behind the Willis and Job still. Lotus Elan currently in 7th. Just ahead of them another Lotus Elan, this time the S1, and that is 57 seconds up the road in 6th spot. That's shared by Haddon and Sean Lynn. Sean Lynn, of course, the father of pro driver Alex Lynn, who I call superstar. I'm really impressed with wherever I've seen Alex Lynn drive. He's really impressed me. I'm not sure he's in Formula E this season after the Aston Martin programme came to a halt. But he has been an Aston Martin Works driver for the last few seasons in the WEC and other series. There is the 88. Here he comes. Now what will the gap be? It was 42 seconds, I think, Alistair. Let's see if he's narrowed it.
No, it's actually gone out. That was another good lap from Roy Alderslade. I wonder whether Mike and Andrew Jordan are on the pit wall saying, get on with it.
Come on. I think that was more a case of the 88 being held up slightly, overtaken by Marcus.
Yeah,
and that's how it will be. It will ebb and flow. 22 minutes remain. 22 minutes remaining of the Royal Automobile Club Pall Mall Cup, and the second place number 17 just tripping up a little bit.
Now he's held up this time.
Yes, he has been held up, so it'll ebb and flow back to in favour of Kent in the Jaguar.
That was a 1:24.8, so a slow time, and that was pretty much all in that last corner, wasn't it? Where not the Triumph's fault at all. There's nowhere he could go.
He was already committed. You find the smaller engine cars are even more committed through the corners.
And the fact that Roger Wills is there, he's going to take another lap out of the Roy Alderslade car, so the leader could well win by 2 clear laps, which is an absolutely stunning performance.
It really is. Both drivers driving this car really well. There hasn't really been a weak link there, has there, in their driver lineup. Here's the 88 across the line now. Let's see what the gap is.
22.6, so that's another 2 seconds taken off. We're back to 42.5,
which is 42.
Where we were last time.
Absolutely,
yeah.
Time's running out though.
That's the Lotus Elite there. I'm not sure we've seen that much on screen in this race. The Mark Gordon, Nick Finborough car, Lotus Elite, which was the forerunner of the Lotus Elan from Colin Chapman at the Lotus Company. A very pretty car indeed, and that's following the 88 car down into the old hairpin, and this could well spell the possibly one of the moments that will define this race, because the 88 has got a lot of slower traffic to get through. Some of it isn't that much slower than him, which is even harder. And
he's caught them right at the point in this Donington circuit where you don't want to catch them, right through the old hairpin, all the way through and into McLean's. He would have wanted to have cleared this traffic on the straights where the car is faster. He's cleared maybe half of them, but now he's still got about 4 cars to clear. Onto the back straight he goes, lights ablaze to warn that slower traffic. When I say slower, it's all relative. He gets waved by the other E-Type, and he goes down the inside. That not have cost him as much time as he perhaps if he'd had to fight his way by using all the road. Here's another time check on that second and third place battle. It's back up to 44.
Yeah, that was a slower time from Richard Kent, and a spin from the Lister Costin, number 8 of Max Girardo and James Cottingham.
That's the car that's in 4th place as well.
Yes, and we also, you said number 1 waved through the 88 car. Well, number 1 is actually in 5th place, so not challenging 88 for a position, but just shows the respect between these drivers, despite the fact they're both in the top 5. The driver of car number 1, that's either James Cottingham, Ollie Bryant or Harvey Stanley, waved through the other car. As we look at Roger Wills, our leader, number 24, totally metronomic that car's been, hasn't it?
Yeah, and it only has to continue being metronomic for about 18 and a half minutes, and then we will see where that car absolutely being driven with such finesse, with such speed. I mentioned there, very little difference in the abilities of both Roger Wills and Tim Harvey. Tim Harvey a known quantity, Roger Wills slightly so if you are an historic racing fan. And that Lotus 15, it's not that far from the 17 car in second place, so I'm not sure if I caught that right on the TV screen there, but it may be. We'll have a look at the tracker if it comes to it. But right now we're more concentrated on and it's gone out to 46.
Yeah, I was just about to say, I think Andrew or Mike or both have lit a fire under Roy Alderslade, because he's just done a 1:22.0, which is only a second and a half off Andrew Jordan's best time in that car in the race. So that's a stunning performance from Roy, and he knows that he's got to keep going at a decent pace, and he's just done a 24.0, so that was slightly slower, but he's doing enough to keep Richard Kent back. There's Richard Kent in the 88 E-Type, and ahead of him further around the circuit by about 45 seconds is Roy Alderslade, and he's doing enough to keep that gap. He will be getting pitboard signals. There's no pit to car radio or anything like that in these cars, but the teams will be hanging out the board with the gap to number 17 in the case of the pits for this car, and number 88 in the case of the pits for number 17.
Here he is across the line then. Let's see what the gap is. It was 46, back down to 44. Hasn't really made that much progress, certainly the last 3 laps, but now that he's cleared all those back marker traffic, now we see that E-Type really find its pace again, and I'm sure we're going to see some quick lap times from the 88. And of course Richard Kent is at the wheel of the car, and I've got to say he drove very well through that traffic. He didn't get into any panic stations. He knows he's chasing down a second place, but after all he's still looking good for a third place podium finish, and it's the Royal Automobile Club Pall Mall Cup. And I was right, the 24 car crosses the line, and just ahead of him on the road is the second place car.
Yeah.
Now that second place car already a lap down. It looks very much like our leading car is about to go 2 laps up ahead of the whole field. 2 laps on the whole field.
Slightly worrying moment there for Roger Wills, because the Austin Healey with the registration DD300 that we were talking about earlier just went a little bit deep into the chicane, locked a brake, went wide, but the driver was aware that Roger Wills was there, so he kept over to the left hand side. But all sorts of things going through Roger Wills' mind at the moment. Every little knock and scrape will be, is that the car braking?
Of course it will. Of course he'll be thinking of all sorts of things going through his head.
But a superb drive from both Roger and from Tim Harvey. That car has just kept going round. He's not hitting the curbs hard, he's not pushing the car right to the edges of the track. And you can see now the second place car, the Daytona Cobra Coupe, and then in the background you can see Roger Wills in the leading car, so almost 2 laps up now on the 17 car.
So it's quite majestic, really. That's the only way I can describe both of how these drivers have managed this car over this 3 hours. We've still got just past the 15 minutes to go mark, so we are getting towards the very latter stages of this race. And a spinner there causing some consternation at Redgate. That's the number 144. That's the Poshiel of Paul and George Poshiel, James Hansen in the Jaguar. And a car off. Maybe it is fitness coming in. We've seen a few cars making mistakes, spinning harmlessly. That's the number 9 Porsche of Steve Winter and Matthew Home. having a bit of a spin, what looked like on the exit of the old hairpin. Excursion across the grass, rejoined, no harm, no foul. Notice there the 600 going through the shot. I wasn't sure about what progress that car had made. Oh, there it is, just on the screen. 24th place, Tordoffel Woolmer at the wheel of that number 600. And it's the MGB, of course. There's the leader. The leader's getting mixed up now in that back marker traffic. And there is that second place car just ahead of the leader. I can't see any problems from Roy Alderslade when he sees that white car, the Lotus 15, behind him in his mirrors. They've got a Lotus Elan in between them.
Roger Wills
just look at that,
swinging across the track there. Yeah, he gets his way past that Porsche. Now he's got the Lotus Elan, which he will easily pass on the inside, and he's now right behind Roy Alderslade, who has been stuck. It'd be interesting to see the lap at 27.6 from Roy Alderslade that time. He's been stuck in that traffic for well over a lap now, and still in there. It's a balance, isn't it, Joe, between do I push and try and get through, and an inexperienced driver in a big car that's hard to drive. Andrew Jordan said that, and he's trying to work his way through traffic, and he doesn't want to make any mistakes.
And that's where the urgency and the panic can creep in. He knows he's got to get clear of this traffic. He knows he's got to remain calm, because he knows that the car that he's racing has got to clear the same traffic. And I suppose the art is to get through the traffic better than your opponent. That's what it's all about. And sometimes it's just down to pure luck. Just pure luck and timing, and just being in the right place at the right time. And he's now going to have the lead car in his mirrors. So as he's overtaking, he's being overtaken. And if anything, he's cost the leader a little bit of time because the leader, Roger Wills, is still behind the second place car.
But even more than Roy Alderslade, Roger Wills is well aware that he's got some time in hand. He's got nearly 2 laps in hand, so he doesn't need to rush. But the gap is down second to third to 35 seconds because Roy's been caught up in that traffic for a lap and a bit now. So we are going to have a close finish, but I think with 11 minutes remaining, it's probably too much to ask to get the Richard Kent car up into second place.
I thought so, but you know what, Alistair, we're in the entertainment business. We were just trying to create a bit of excitement there, weren't we? And it's still not over though, still 11 minutes remaining, and all it takes is for a wrong piece of judgment, a little bit of misbreaking point, and that 35 seconds can disappear in the blink of an eye.
Well, it's 33 now, isn't it?
There you go. It's still
yeah.
coming down, so there's still a bit of intensity. I'd like to think that with just under 11 minutes to go, there's still an opportunity. Still got a few laps of racing. Oh, and there's the number 8 going very slowly into McLean's. And that's the car that is currently 4th, and it's pulling off onto the inside, and that is not good at all. That car very much in contention. It's the Lister Jag Costin of Cottingham, Bryant and Stanley, all 3 very good drivers.
No, I think
sorry, that's the Gerardo and Cottingham
that's
car.
Right, yeah, Cottingham's in 2 cars, isn't it? It's confusing,
And they're both together on the list, 4th and 5th. So when you first glance, you see Cottingham and you think, there it is. So problems there, pulling that car off to the side, and it looks like it's out of this race very much.
That's hard to take with 10 minutes to go, isn't it? And there's the other Cottingham car. Oh, and a spin from the Lotus Elite as well. There is some foibles, is it, coming into the last part of this race. The Elite just having a quick spin there as well. Let's turn our attention back to you. The gap is down to 31.9, and there is the Gerardo Cottingham. Is that James Cottingham's helmet?
I was going to ask you that.
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure. It looks similar, but don't know who's in that car.
If it looks similar, it probably is then. I don't think Harvey Stanley would have copied James's helmet design. So.
Well, no, it could well be Max, because James was due in for the middle stint. That doesn't mean he didn't stay in for the last stint. they can change their minds, but
Yeah.
it was due to go back to Max for the final stint. There's the 88 car. We've been following that for a while as it chases after the Roy Alderslade car, which has just completed another lap. A 1:23.8 for Alderslade that time around. That's probably enough to keep the gap at around 30 seconds.
30 seconds being, as he just crossed the line there, sorry, I've got the wrong E-type. I thought that was the 88, and I'm thinking that's not 30 seconds, that's half a lap.
That's just at the top. That car's actually now running in
What will be fourth,
won't it? Yeah. So Cottingham will take Cottingham's place.
Yeah, Cottingham overtakes Cottingham.
Yeah.
James, part of GK Engineering and part of the support for this event. And a big thank you once again to Motor Racing Legends, DK Engineering and the Royal Automobile Club.
You're annoyed now, aren't you? Did you see the Porsche? The one that had the door opening.
It hasn't got colour.
It's been tank taped up.
With the wrong colour tip.
Well, yes, could be. You could say that. It's bright red.
Not the same maroon red that is the colour of the stripes, or the off-white kind of. I know there'll be an official Porsche name for that off-white colour, but bright red tape just sort of draws your attention to it.
And Roger Wills actually hasn't got past Roy Alderslade, so he's happy just to sit behind. Yeah. That's been 2 or 3 laps now he's been there. He is virtually 2 laps ahead. He's a lap and almost a lap right behind him. So he may well choose to pass him. He may choose just to stay behind, because Roy has gone back to putting in those low 22s on the lap time, 1 minute 22s.
Here's the gap to third.
Yep.
With the 88 just coming across the line now. As he clicks over the line, we'll see what the time is. It's about the same, isn't it? 30,
it is
33 seconds.
Yeah, he was actually lost a second that lap with a bit of lappery to do. So yeah, it's very much held, and we've got we haven't mentioned how many laps they've done. 111 laps for the leader in this 3-hour race. That's quite something for these cars, and 110 laps for the cars in second and third places.
Well, we're getting towards the final stages, certainly the final 6 whole minutes left of the Royal Automobile Club Pall Mall Cup, and it's been the kind of endurance race what we've come to expect, certainly with some attrition and some incident, and we've had cars that have certainly dealt with the adversity of needing repairs, and none more so than the number 17, currently in second place, and that car has just gone another lap down. He followed him around for about 3 or 4 laps there, I think, and the leader, that is Roger Wills in the Lotus 15, has just gotten past the number 17 Roy Alderslade car now, but the Alderslade car is second, 2 laps off the leader, and then the number 88 is the car that is chasing that car down. Richard Kent at the wheel of the 88. We're just waiting for Richard to cross the line. Is that a 5 seconds difference in lap time there?
28.1 between second and third now. So that's the first time they've been in the 20 seconds.
It is.
Which he's nibbled away, got it down into the 30s, but now into the 20s with 5 minutes to go.
So not far to go now for everybody, but as we've just seen there with the number 8, the Gerardo Cottingham Lister Jag pulling off with a problem. It's all nuts and bolts, it's all bits of glue, nuts and bolts, bits of rubber, bits of fiberglass, all knitted together in a fashion, and anything can go wrong at any stage, and especially in historic racing. It's perhaps an element of endurance racing which we've lost these days. It seems to be, no matter what the duration of the race is, it's a sprint with modern day machinery, computers managing your gear shifts and stuff. Takes away that element of driver management and drivers being able to caress and nurse gearboxes home.
What would it be, do you think, when Audi came into World Endurance Racing, that the element of keeping the cars for the 24 hours, and now it's a 24-hour sprint?
Probably around about those early 2000s. I mean, even when you think about the adversity that sort of mixes endurance races up. They even narrowed that field down with full modular rear ends.
Yes,
and I've witnessed many times in the American Le Mans series and at Le Mans. I think the quickest time I ever saw was 4 minutes for a gearbox change, and that brought about a rule change at Le Mans where you had to finish the race with the same gearbox casing. And what the design of the Audi R8 was that the rear end from the engine back over was one big modular unit that bolted onto the back of the engine, and the gearbox had the suspension and everything, the bodywork, the undertray, all attached, and one rear end came off and the new rear end went on. And a gearbox problem like that would mix things up, and Audi even shaved seconds off that and shaved literally minutes and took away that element of attrition. So I think you're probably right, Alistair. It was around about that time that Audi upped the game, and now it's kind of commonplace for not even gearboxes to be affected by drivers.
So 3 minutes remaining, and Roy Alderslade just completed another lap, and that lap time of 1:22.5, which is a good time, and the gap to third place with Richard Kent completing his lap, 25.9 seconds. So it is still coming down slowly, but with only a couple of laps to go, I think that charge is going to be in vain.
It's been a great race, though. It's been a great race all the way to the flag for those two final podium steps, second and third. I think, though, with coming up to, as you say, the final couple of laps, I used the word majestic for the winning car, the Lotus 15. Roger Wills, Tim Harvey, the way that they used the traffic and the way that they just had the car moving around in the corners, it was just a joy to watch, really.
Yeah.
From both of those guys. There is the 66. Oh, and there's a problem. I was just saying, wasn't I? It's just nuts and bolts. And there's the number 26 Elan.
That is dropping an awful lot of fluid onto the track.
That's a good point, actually. At a point where we don't want fluid, at the old hairpin. You know what? Heads up driving from whoever's at the wheel of that number 26. It's either Chris Fox or Nick Pink, because he pulled the car off before the apex of the old hairpin. If he'd gone round the old hairpin on the apex, that would have caused absolute mayhem. And that looks like a catastrophic engine failure, if you ask me.
Yeah, the only sort of semi-good thing, it looks like it's water, steam, rather than oil smoke. So it might be that was a... it may be
that was water that he was dropping rather than oil.
It looked like it,
trail.
Yeah. So it's not as bad as oil.
Pipe or something then.
So we got a minute to go. Oh, cars all over the place coming through the chicane. It may be only a minute to go, but they're still racing. These the two Porsches and the E-Type there between them, and they're making their way round onto their last lap. We've got 48 seconds to go. Where is our leader at the moment? He is just coming across the line. Yep, so just crossing the line. So that's coming on to the last lap now.
Yeah, last lap then for Roger Wills, and he will continue round. I'm kind of hoping that the fluid that was put down at the old hairpin hasn't become a problem for anyone. And there's another spinner at the old hairpin. That's the entry to the old hairpin. Tyre smoke. That's just in front of our leader. Here he comes now, Roger Wills.
And that's exactly where that car blew up, isn't
yes,
it? And there you can see the trail, actually, just as he went across it.
It's on the inside, and like I say, the Elan pulled off just before the inside curbing, so didn't affect the track surface there. And the leader is clear. The 24 car, the Lotus 15 of Roger Wills and Tim Harvey, already into McLaren's for the final time. As he continues. And he's just easing that car around now. He's not even using the curbs, Alistair. He knows that the flag, the checkered flag, is going to be greeted by that checkered flag next time by. He's on to the back straight for the final time.
And the second place car right behind, but not, of course, on the... In fact, Roger lets him go through, and that might be something to do with letting Roy Alderslade collect one lap back, because he's now not going to cross the line with the checkered flag out. So Roy is going to do another complete lap as long as he doesn't go off on that lap. But that's the idea, and I think we've had the
flag.
Yep, we have yes, we have had the flag. Yes,
Roger Wills, 2 arms in the air to acknowledge that, and yes, I suppose it's important for Alderslade and Jordan to only finish 1 lap behind the leader, or whether he was aware remains to be seen.
I think actually they're going to finish on the same lap, aren't they? Because I thought he was 2 laps down. Well, it's showing as 1 now. It did seem earlier on from the screen, you and I saw it, and we thought that it was going to be 2 laps down, but it's showing as 1 lap down now. So that means that Roy Alderslade will finish on the same lap, but it also means that Richard Kent can't catch the Roy Alderslade car, because he will have passed the checkered flag. So he's finished the race now a lap down on 116 laps, and the leader on 117, and Roy Alderslade also on 117. Oh, and a Porsche on the very last lap, at the very last corner.
Yeah,
goes straight on.
Still pushing on.
So we're just waiting now. The Roy Alderslade should be will be the last car to take the flag, because he was just ahead of the leader who took the flag. So here he comes.
He will finish on the lead lap.
He will. What a great drive. A very, very limited amount of experience from Roy Alderslade, driving a car which Andrew Jordan himself said is tough to drive, and he's come through in 2nd place. There's our winner.
There's our winner indeed, and a great race it was. Snowy's just told me a story about how he usually partnered with James Littlejohn, and when he said that he was going to run the Lotus 15, James Littlejohn said, "I'm sorry, I've already committed." And he said, "Okay, mate, I'll find someone else." And who did he find? He found Tim Harvey. It's like a great stand-in, really.
Do you think Tim Harvey needed asking twice?
Probably not.
No, I don't think so. No, it's a good shot. What a lovely shot there. Really close in on Roger Wills' face there in the full-face helmet. So we've got Roger Wills and Tim Harvey, 117 laps, and indeed Roy Alderslade and Andrew Jordan on 117 laps. The gap between them 1 minute 24, and the gap back to the 3rd placed car, although there was a lap down, in the end it was well inside the 22nd mark after that charge from Richard Kent and Chris Ward.
The team are happy. He pulls up in front of the pit garage for that team, and he's congratulating Tim Harvey there. Just leant in and shook the hand of Roger Wills, and that car will be making its way down to Parc Fermé, and a great win for those 2 characters.
Looks like actually they're
it looks like they're
straight in the garages, aren't they?
Yeah, I'm not sure why we aren't seeing any cars to Parc Fermé. Yes, we are.
I think we'll get hopefully we'll get the top 3 to see Andrew. We'll get you the results up on screen. Some cars going into the garages, others going through. So here we are with our results for the Royal Automobile Club Pall Mall Cup, and it was Roger Wills and Tim Harvey who took the win in the Lotus 15 with 117 laps completed. Roy Alderslade and Andrew Jordan in 2nd place, also on 117 laps, just 1 minute 24 behind at the end in the Shelby Daytona Cobra. In 3rd place it was Richard Kent and Chris Ward in the Jaguar E-Type, 1 lap down, and then it was James Cottingham, Ollie Bryant and Harvey Stanley in another Jaguar E-Type, a further couple of laps back. Then it's in 5th place Andrew Haddon and Sean Lynn in the first of the Lotus Elans. What a stunning result for the little Elan. I hadn't spotted them coming through, apologies to them. And then in 6th place, another Elan. Willis and Jobstill came through into 6th place. Then it was the Charles Junior and Senior shared car in 7th place, the Shelby Cobra. In 8th place, it was Mines and Lillingston Price in the E-Type. And then the Miles, Wright and Coyne in 9th place in the Mustang. And completing the top 10, Muirhead and Welsh in the Austin Healey 3000. In 11th place, Jones and Barry in the Lotus Elan 26R, and in 12th it was Gom and Keith Lucas in the E-Type. Another E-Type in 13th place for Melling, Burton and Pattle. In 14th place, It was Bond and Gray, and we saw Ian Gray interviewed, didn't we, in the Lotus Elan. Then in 15th place, McFadden and Mitchell in the Lister Nobly. In 16th place, Pearson and Friedrichs in the C-Type Jaguar. In 17th place, Bourne and Paul in the TVR Grand Tourer. In 18th place, Ross Jones, Hales in the TR4. And in 19th place, the Bateses in their 911. And in 20th place, Hansen, Posciol and Posciol in the Jaguar E-Type. In 21st place, Fox and Pink in the Land 26R. In 22nd place, it was Lynn and Haddon in their 911 Porsche. In 23rd place, Winter, Cull and Smith in the MGB, and a similar car of Sam Tordoff and Richard Woolmer in 24th place in their MGB. And then in 25th place, the Girardo and Cottingham, wonderfully named, the Lister Jaguar Coastin, it's actually a Costin, and in 26th place, Tuthill and Paul and Butcher, Rory Butcher indeed, in the 911 Porsche, and then in 27th place, Harris and Wilmoth in the Austin Healey 3000, Hart, Fierro Eleta and Smith in the 911 in 28th place, 29th, Home and Winter in the 911, and in 30th, Shalgren and Cook in the Ford Mustang. And we've still got a few more cars to tell you about. In 31st place, Gordon and Finborough in the Lotus Elite. LeBlanc and Van Lanschot in the Austin Healey 3000. That's the DD300 registration number we were talking about. Finished in 32nd place. In 33rd, it was Mallet, Clark and Clark in the MGB, and Littlejohn and Evans. And we're into the retirements now, aren't we? Because we know Littlejohn and Evans retired. We saw that. Lotus Elan 26R. Sleep, Montgomery and Wickham in the Shelby Mustang, and Hancock, Fiskin and Blakeney, we know they retired as well in the E-Type. Becker and Prill. That's a shame that car retired. It was 904 Porsche, really pretty looking car. And Wakeham, Blakeney Edwards in the Cobra, Oyenhausen Steershops, and it was Andy Newell, wasn't it, in the Jaguar E-Type, and Evans, Smith and Little in the Cobra. And just to complete this, and we'll go down, I think we're keep going with this, is David Wenman and in the Morgan +4, and then it's Gill and Dalgleish in the Shelby Cobra, Smithies, Clarkson and Pangborn in the Austin Healey 3000, the Mortimers in their Austin Healey 104, the Aston Martin DP214, that blue car, Short, Wilds and Goldsmith retired early on, and two early retirements, that's Stanley and Cook in the Cobra, and in 47th, we had 47 starters in that race, O'Shea, Hall and Smith in the E-Type.
Well done, Alistair. That's a 47 car field you've just read down there. You can go and have a lie down there, because the Royal Automobile Club Pall Mall Cup, we are ready with our winners at the podium, and Andrew Marriott is there.
Yes, indeed, and let's go over to Roger Willis now. Roger, all the way from New Zealand with a very silly face mask on. What a fabulous drive from you, of course, with Tim Harvey. And you've had a lot of wins in your career, Roger, but this must go down as one of the best.
Oh, it was fabulous. I mean, such a cracking race. Tim did a fabulous job in his stint. Car held together. We had a gearbox issue on the last lap, and I got past the Daytona, and I thought, right, he can go. I don't care now. You know, I've got lap lead or something. So we just got it over the line. I mean, it's a big ask for a little car like this, a delicate little thing, but you know, we got there in the end, and Rich and the boys did a fabulous job, beautifully prepared as always. Great day.
And had you flown all the way from New Zealand for this?
No, I live in London. No.
All right, okay. Yeah. Tim, come in here. Still a winner.
Well, yeah, thanks to Rog and the boys, and just a fantastic car. You know, this is a race I'll really remember. It's a great, you know, it's a long race. It is a big ask for a little car, and it's just got this little touch of magic, this car, and it's a real pleasure to drive it. And thank you to Roger for inviting me. I really enjoyed it.
Well, congratulations, you two. Let's go back into the rest of the area here. We're going to go a little bit of a way to find the other cars, actually. And I'm hoping, well, I can see Mike Jordan down there, and here we are. Let's. We talked to Andrew Jordan earlier, but let's talk to Roy Alderslade here. As the camera comes. Roy, 2 years ago you were racing a little Ginetta. Now you're winning a 3-hour race in a great big Cobra.
It's a different ball game, I have to say. I'm absolutely exhausted.
And there's a lot of pressure on you, of course, because Andrew handed the car over to you. You had people, you know, coming through, and you just had to hold it together in a car you didn't know.
Well, yeah, I mean, we've had a fair bit of testing in the car and, give it a good run this season. But, experiencing the race was absolutely fantastic. To do that endurance racing was something new to me and thoroughly enjoyable. Despite all the damage, we still.
I think you might get a bill from the Jordan crowd for that.
Yeah, that's the bad part of it, but we'll worry about that next.
So definitely the highlight of your career.
Is it a highlight of my career, did you say?
Yes.
Yeah, this fantastic, yeah. I mean, first race we've done in the Cobra, and we've come in P1, so we couldn't ask for more, really. Brilliant.
Right, very well done. Where is Andrew Jordan? Andrew did a lot of hard work in it. Andrew, we had a nice interview in the middle of the race, but congratulations, you must be so happy because it means so much to you. You built this car, and that's no easy task, and then you drove it superbly.
Yeah, no, really credit to the guys that have put this together. So to get it to the end of a 3 hour, as I said, it's a long race for these cars. So over the moon for Roy. We'll have to get it to the metalwork next week, I think, because it's taken a bit of a beating. But for Roy to get a class win and second overall in his first kind of long distance race, I'm so happy, and so happy the car got to the end.
Absolutely brilliant. Well, that's about it from me down here in the Donington marshalling area. We've had a great 2 days, a lot of fun, worked with some wonderful people. So from me, Andrew Barrett, it's goodbye until the next time, and back to you in the booth.
Thank you, Andrew, and I know you've enjoyed it and loved every moment of it. I know Alistair and I have. Alistair, there it is, the conclusion then of the 2021 Donington Historic Festival. We couldn't have any spectators here, but I'm hoping everyone at home who would have been at the track has been able to enjoy exactly what we've seen on the live stream.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's a different view for me. This is my 4th Donington Historic Festival, but the previous 3 have been done from the tower. Very different view, but it's been a real pleasure to work with the team. I think they've done a fantastic job. Everybody here, the marshals, the historic promotions people who put the events on, the motor racing legends who get the grids together, the historic Grand Prix cars, the juniors, all bringing their grids here. What a wonderful weekend we've had, and that was really the icing on the cake, that race. I love it. I love long distance racing. I think it's brilliant, and to see those drivers and a real privilege to work at an event like this.
Absolutely concur with that. Once again, a big thank you to DK Engineering and the Royal Automobile Club, as well as Motor Racing Legends, and of course all the crew at Race Television who have brought us these some wonderful pictures, what we've seen today. So me, Joe Bradley, Alistair Douglas, Andrew Marriott and Peter Snowden will say goodnight, and we are already looking forward to the next Donington Historic Festival.